Marvel. Winter Soldier got a cyberpunk system. Chapter 41. Tell me, Billy, what's your full name? What do you do? Just moments ago, Billy had a gun pointed at Bucky. Now, their roles were reversed. Bucky stood as calmly as before, while Billy was bound to a chair with thick ropes, coil after coil. You don't know who I am. Billy's initial anger, vigilance, and suspicion instantly turned into utter bewilderment after hearing Bucky's question. You fool, you don't even know who I am, yet you tracked me all this way, started a fight without a word, and then kidnapped me here. Are you a cyber-psychosis patient? Yes, I was once Night City's 17th cyber-psychosis patient. Understanding Billy's gaze, Bucky silently mocked himself. It's a long night, and I can't sleep. Let's chat. Billy, what's your full name? No comment. Why are you bothering me? How did I offend you? It seems if I don't give you a taste of your own medicine, you won't realize the seriousness of the situation. Pa, bring it on. Facing Bucky's threat, Billy's expression was one of disdain. Without even decent torture tools, who are you trying to scare with your bare hands? Bucky glared at him, thinking, you're looking down on me, aren't you? If I don't show you something truly impressive, you won't know why cyber is punk. However, with a grim face, he dragged the chair over, not to hit him, but to turn it around, sit down, and rest his hands on the backrest, his expression changing like magic into a grinning one. Just kidding. With such a handsome face, how could I bear to hit you? Billy was stunned, and subconsciously, he was about to say, "Pa." Disgusting. When, swish, he saw the other party draw a field knife from his waist, skillfully twirl it a few times, grasp the hilt, and place the cold blade against his meticulously maintained face. How about I help you peel off your entire face, preserve it nicely, and then when I hit you, it won't get damaged. How does that sound? Don't worry, my hands are steady, and the knife is fast. Your face will still be just as beautiful. As the field knife's blade scraped across Billy's face like a razor, his disdainful, contemptuous, and disgusted gaze instantly turned to terror, and he desperately craned his head backward. No, stop. Don't stop, I understand. Bucky was still smiling, but in Billy's eyes, it was a devilish grin. His hand movements suddenly sped up. Swish swish swish. Billy only saw flashes of dark light in front of his eyes, and a chilling sensation on his face, again and again. His composure instantly broke. Stop. You stop it. Fool, don't touch my face. Bucky ignored him, concentrating on shaving his beard until all the stubble on his face was gone, then he nodded in satisfaction. And Billy was already like a fresh young man who had been played with by 18 muscle-bound men in a fairy game. I'm going to kill you. I must kill you. ... What the heck, he actually cried. Bucky truly hadn't expected that just scaring this guy would have such a good effect. Hey, I heard that some people who haven't truly recognized their orientation subconsciously reject or even discriminate against it. Were you perhaps enraged out of embarrassment earlier? Seeing Billy's behavior, Bucky himself felt a bit of goosebumps, and he returned the "pa" disgusting expression in full. If you have the guts, kill me. Just kill me. Now that I know you care so much about your face, you wouldn't be so naive as to think I'd let you off so easily, would you? You'd better accept reality and confess honestly. Billy cursed for a while, vented enough, and then glared at Bucky with extreme malice, asking sinisterly, "What do you want to know?" Cough. This wasn't Bucky clearing his throat to ask a question, it was a light cough from behind Bucky. One moment. Bucky made a wait gesture. Billy just let out a sigh of relief when he suddenly felt intense pain all over his body. An electric arc flashed across him, and he started foaming at the mouth and convulsing. Any results? The one who coughed was Maria Hill. She had already removed her makeup and changed into her shield agent uniform, holding a fax in her hand. Yes, this person is Billy Russo. He was once a Marine Corps Master Sergeant. After leaving the military, he opened a security company called Anvil, but he actually took on mercenary jobs, mostly gray or black operations. By the way, Phil asked me to tell you that this person was once Frank Castle's comrade in arms. So, it really is him. As soon as Bucky heard Billy Russo, he immediately reacted. No wonder this guy cared so much about his face. Isn't this the pretty boy Billy from the Punisher US drama he watched a few episodes of before his crossing? Frank Castle's former comrade in arms, due to some mishap in an operation following CIA orders, caused Frank to retire. Bucky wasn't entirely clear on the specific reasons as he hadn't watched the show closely. But he knew that Billy had a significant connection to that mishap. He seemed to be Frank's friend but was eventually revealed to be the villainous boss, causing Frank immense suffering, and ultimately, Frank disfigured his face with broken glass. What a coincidence, this guy actually fell into his hands like this. Then why did Billy bring so many gunmen to New York? It's not entirely clear yet. We only know he arrived more than half a year ago and quickly took over half of New York's laundry powder market. His security company is just a front, maintaining a large number of gunmen just to protect his real business. What about you? Did you find out anything? Well, he cares a lot about his handsome face, even a small scratch makes him explode. What kind of news is this? It actually seems somewhat useful. Hill subconsciously wanted to express her exasperation at Bucky's unreliability again, but then she thought, this is a weakness that can be exploited. So you'll continue the interrogation? Bucky waved his hand. No need. Prepare. Prepare for what? Battle preparations. He actually has a tracker on him. Someone should be coming to rescue him soon. Hill frowned upon hearing this. Where? I clearly searched him. Bucky shrugged. His shoe heel, underwear, teeth, under the skin, all possible, right? Hill was a little angry. Why didn't you tell me earlier? No need. If the tracker isn't on, how can we see who it draws out? You're trying to bait them. You should have told me earlier. It's not too late to say it now. Go prepare. 5 SUVs stopped on a highway outside a small orchard in rural New Jersey. One by one, soldiers in combat fatigues, wearing night vision goggles, fully armed and well-trained, disembarked from the vehicles. 17 or 18 soldiers moved silently towards the 2-story detached house next to the orchard. They, however, were unaware that within the house and within the orchard, 2 pairs of eyes had already spotted them the moment they arrived. This was not them surrounding the house, but rather the people inside the house quietly closing the net. Boss. Feeling a shake, Billy Russo slowly woke up. Although his head was still throbbing, he didn't feel as weak as he did when he woke up last time. He quickly regained consciousness and saw a man in a camouflage combat uniform with a camouflage hood shaking him. You are, sir, we located you and came to rescue you. There's still fighting outside, I'll release you now. Billy then noticed the continuous gunfire outside. He felt a loosening sensation as the ropes binding him were cut open by the person who came to rescue him, using a claw knife. Sir, we need to leave quickly. The enemy was prepared. This is an ambush, and our situation is not good. Go. Upon hearing this, Billy didn't care about anything else. Even if all his subordinates were gone, he could still hire more. The United States had no shortage of soldiers who felt lost and without purpose after returning to the city. As long as he could escape, that was all that mattered. He followed his subordinate, who came to rescue him, leaving from the back. As soon as he stepped out, the gunfire became clearer. Hey, handsome brother Billy, where are you going? Billy hadn't run far when he heard a voice that made him shiver. Then he saw the figure he wished he could tear to pieces, moving with an unbelievable speed, breaking through the gunfire and rushing towards him. Sir, you go quickly. I'll help you stop him. Good. Billy, unlike when he recruited his men, didn't act like a good brother, living and dying together, sharing fortune and hardship. He unhesitatingly changed direction and ran. Run into the woods, through the woods, our car is there, Billy heard the loyal subordinates shout and couldn't help but look back, only to see the subordinate's left arm shot, yet still fighting back fiercely. And that guy also took a shot, but just rolled on the ground and stood up again. This made him break out in a cold sweat. He ran with all his might, not daring to look back. Even when he heard the miserable cry of that hateful guy, who seemed to have been shot again, he didn't dare to look back. Running all the way into the woods, through the trees, finding the car, getting in, and stepping on the gas, Billy didn't dare to let out a breath. But, did he really escape? Driving the car, Billy still couldn't believe it was all real. Bang! Suddenly, there was a violent jolt. Billy shivered in fright and saw a black SUV catching up in the rearview mirror. Bang! The car accelerated and crashed into Billy's car again. As the 2 cars drove side by side, Billy saw that hateful face, with a shining-like smile. Anger surged in Billy's heart, and malice rose in his guts. He sharply turned the steering wheel, and the car slammed back. Bang! There was another violent collision, and with that, the other car's speed slowed down. In the rearview mirror, Billy saw smoke billowing from the front hood of that guy's car. The engine had blown and broken down. Serves you right. Eat sh*t. Idiot. Billy turned back and fiercely gave a middle finger. The resentment accumulated all night finally dissipated a little. He didn't know that inside the broken down car, Bucky calmly pushed open the door and got out. He watched the taillights of the car driving away and smiled slightly. Just then, a helicopter roared overhead, following Billy's car in the sky. Not long after, a masked man in combat uniform, driving Bucky's silver-gray Mustang, caught up. The two swapped, and Bucky drove away. Meanwhile, at the residential area, shortly after Bucky left, the two sides in the firefight stopped their mock exchange of fire. The person who had saved Billy and then fallen into a pool of blood got up as if nothing had happened, removed his hood, revealing a sympathetic hairline, and then directed the people on site to carry unconscious individuals out of the residential building, throw them into a car, and drive away. Coney Island, at the southernmost tip of Brooklyn, the dock. Billy parked his car and skillfully boarded a moored yacht. The fully armed security personnel on the yacht ignored him. He walked straight to the open deck at the stern, a troubled expression on his face, and plopped down on the leather sofa in front of the coffee table. On the opposite sofa sat a corpulent, middle-aged white man with a sinister look in one eye, dressed in a custom-made high-end suit, a cigar in his left hand, and a glass of champagne in his right. Yes, he was similar to a certain future Agent King. His left eye was a glass prosthetic. "Brother Billy, why are you back alone? Where are the people who went to rescue you?" "How should I know? It's not easy for me to escape back, William." The middle-aged white man named William couldn't help but frown upon hearing this. "Who exactly is causing us trouble?" "How should I know? Lunatic. Maniac." Billy grabbed the champagne on the table, tilted his head back, and chugged it. When he thought of that hateful figure, a surge of evil fire burned in his chest. "This isn't over. I'll gather another group of people and go back to kill them." "Don't be impulsive. We only lost a few men, but the goods are fine, so business is important. We at least need to first." "No, I can't swallow this." William tried to dissuade him, but Billy fiercely cut him off. "Billy, this is business." "No, this is a personal grudge." "William, haven't I done enough for business? Gathering brothers, expanding the market, fighting outside, which one wasn't me? I even found someone to deal with Frank's entire family for you. He was my brother, but it was to avenge your blind eye. So don't tell me about business anymore. This time, I have the right to do it for myself." Billy's heart full of resentment and grievances burst forth wildly, yet he spoke of killing his good brother's entire family with such righteousness. "All right, since you insist, taking the initiative to find out who the other party is isn't a bad option, but this time's losses will all be deducted from your share." "Whatever you say." Billy saw that he had convinced William and finally let out a sigh of relief. He was thinking about how to find people, counterattack, and catch that hateful guy. He wanted to flay that disgusting face and sew it onto a pig's ass. Just then, he heard a splash, followed by silence. A brief silence, just a breath. Then there was a commotion. He vaguely heard crashing sounds and the sound of a silenced pistol. Not good, someone invaded. In Billy's mind, an unshakable figure immediately appeared, a shining like smile, and he shivered involuntarily. "Gun, quickly give me a gun." Billy shivered as if he had been electrocuted, suddenly jumped up, and darted towards the guard not far away. Puff puff puff. Just then, a few gunshots rang out, and blood splattered from the guard's head. William only then reacted, frantically and clumsily trying to pull out his gun. Puff. Ah, but blood splattered from his right shoulder, and he cried out, falling to the ground. "This is, Johnny, pretty face, did you miss me?" However, although Billy instinctively shivered, he didn't look at Bucky, who suddenly appeared, soaking wet. Instead, he looked at another figure, also soaking wet, on the other side. "Frank, Billy, my good brother, you are good, very good. Why are you here?" On the deck at the stern of the yacht, Frank Castle, like a ferocious beast, stared with bloodshot eyes at the dazed Billy Russo, his former comrade in arms, a good brother with whom he had faced life and death. Previously, Frank had received a call from Bucky asking about Billy, and he was merely surprised, regretful, and a little suspicious. How could his former good brother have embarked on a criminal path? But now he had to face his youngest daughter, who had become autistic due to excessive fright, his son, whose intelligence was permanently damaged and whose IQ would remain around 8 to 10 years old due to delayed treatment, and the blood feud of his wife. Even if something happened to his good brother, Frank had no mind to care. However, the one who asked him for help was Bucky, who had saved his son's life. It could even be said that without Bucky, his 2 children would hardly have survived, making Bucky their family's benefactor. Frank could only come to repay the favor, and it wasn't even really repaying a favor. After all, this concerned his former comrade in arms. Then, he watched Bucky put on a self-directed play, letting Billy escape, but planting a bug on him. And then, he heard a conversation that made his heart stop for a moment, almost causing him to collapse. He, Frank, was truly blind. To have considered that greedy beast a brother. He actually tried to kill his entire family for the sake of William Rollins, a CIA agent who had smuggled laundry powder and killed several of their brothers back then, all for a bit of dirty money. Good. Very good. Why, Billy, the comradeship they had shared, facing life and death together, kept Frank clinging to his last shred of sanity. It was Rollins. Rollins forced me. Puff, puff, puff. Upon hearing Billy's sophistry, Frank felt his face was so ugly and disgusting. Gritting his teeth, veins bulging on his forehead, he fired 3 shots at Rollins without hesitation. Rollins fell in a pool of blood, chilling Billy's heart completely. Yes, I did it. I just did it for money. But what's wrong with doing it for money? Frank, this is all your fault. If you had cooperated back then, not a single one of our brothers would have died, and we would all have gotten rich together. This is all your fault. Facing Frank's devouring gaze, Billy's inner dissatisfaction, grievance, anger, fear, and perhaps a tiny bit of regret, finally made him hysterical. That's right, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have been blind, unable to see what kind of trash you are. Then why don't you just die? Billy roared hysterically, charging at Frank. Ah, Frank actually threw his pistol away and charged back like a ferocious beast. The two fought like 2 vicious wolves, engaging in the most primal tearing and grappling. Alas, Bucky let out a silent sigh for Frank's ill-fated destiny, but had no intention of helping. This was Frank's personal grudge, his blood feud, which only he could avenge. He either had to kill Billy or be killed by Billy. And the result, naturally, was the enraged Frank, who ultimately triumphed over Billy, who had been tormented several times throughout the night. Bang! The brutal struggle between the 2 beasts ended with Frank grabbing Billy's head with both hands, smashing his face down onto the glass coffee table, shattering the thick table into pieces. Well, Frank also pulled Billy's hair, making a few slight frictions with the broken glass without much fuss. It wasn't very serious, it just made Billy's handsome face bloody and unrecognizable, ready for a horror movie. Kill me, Frank, kill me, Billy said, spitting blood and barely alive. He knew his face was ruined, he didn't want to see himself now, he just wanted to die. Quote. No. After finishing with Billy's face, Frank had even drawn his field knife and held it to his neck, but after a moment of animalistic panting, he sheathed the knife. Kill me, kill me. That's too easy for you, Billy. I want you to live, to wake up every day and see that disgusting face of yours, to remember what you once looked like. To suffer a life worse than death for it. Remember, this is all from me to you. No, Billy let out a desperate roar, but Frank kicked him hard, knocking him unconscious. After doing all this, Frank felt as if he had lost his soul. What was the point of revenge, of making his enemy pay with blood, or suffer a life worse than death? His beloved was still separated from him forever, leaving him only with endless regret and sorrow. Bucky then walked over and patted Frank's shoulder, but said nothing. Thanks, Johnny. He had thought he was coming to repay a favor, but unexpectedly he ended up owing another. However, Frank was truly disheartened and discouraged, unable to muster any spirit or think about anything. Bucky Barnes. Johnny is just an alias. Quote. Hey, Bucky, that Bucky. What are you doing? Frank was surprised by Bucky revealing his name, but also somewhat enlightened. Given so many miraculous things, it wouldn't be any stranger if he was the former World War II hero. But at that moment, he saw Bucky walk up to Billy, bend slightly, and then suddenly punch him in the spine below his neck. There was a difficult-to-describe sound of bones shattering. The unconscious Billy even opened his eyes for a moment, then spewed blood from his mouth and nose before passing out again. Oh, I think when he wakes up, he definitely won't want to see his face, and might even try to end his life. Wouldn't your request just now be impossible for him to fulfill? This way, he can lie in bed every day and see his face in the mirror on the ceiling when he wakes up. Quote. Frank looked at the serious-faced Bucky, opened his mouth, wanting to say thank you, but felt he couldn't get the words out. Indeed, history doesn't record everything about a person. Who knew that Captain America's friend, a World War II hero, would be such an unsettling guy? But in reality, Bucky just didn't want to leave any future trouble. Frank was done after his fight, but Bucky wouldn't let a villain whom he had provoked so many times, whose most cherished face was disfigured, who would surely be mentally unstable and 3 times stronger in his dark state after healing, survive completely unharmed. Billy could go crazy, but he had to lie in bed, slowly going crazy in his fantasies. Only then could he go crazy however he wanted. Moreover, without this final touch, Billy wouldn't count as defeated by Bucky, and the system wouldn't give experience. He wouldn't let go of a boss with a name and surname that he finally encountered. Let's go, I never want to see this person again. I've had enough. Frank looked at his former brother, now his enemy, and his own blood-stained hands. He just wanted to leave this place, but he didn't know how to escape the nightmare called reality. Frank's vendetta was settled, but the matter was not over. He left the yacht, and Bucky did not. Instead, while S.H.I.E.L.D. personnel had not yet arrived, taking advantage of the undisturbed interval, he searched the boss's lair to see if he could find anything useful, and also wanted to see who this William, Billy's partner, truly was. Indeed, in the captain's cabin, a safe was discovered. Although it was a mechanical combination lock, it didn't pose a problem for Bucky. He couldn't hack it, but he didn't need to, he could just dismantle it. Bucky held the desk lamp's wires in his hand, and with his other hand touching the safe was instantly enveloped in red and blue neon color blocks. The safe was large and sturdy, but it was still made of ordinary materials and crafted with ordinary techniques. The system determined it was still a white ordinary item, a piece of clutter, and it still couldn't escape being broken down into a pile of junk. However, in the blink of an eye, the disassembly was complete, and Bucky obtained several ordinary item components. The safe also turned into junk, as if it had been soaked in seawater for hundreds of years. With a gentle pull, Bucky tore off the cabinet door, revealing the intact items inside the cabinet. An account book, a small black velvet pouch, stacks of $100 bills, and a key with a nameplate. The cash wasn't much, only about a dozen stacks. Bucky directly stuffed it into his embrace, opened the small pouch, and was immediately dazzled. Inside was a cut, pigeon egg-sized ruby, as crimson as blood. Bucky played with it for a couple of moments, then directly put it into his pocket along with the account book and the key. After scanning with his bionic eye, finding no other suspicious areas, Bucky planned to leave, but as he returned to the deck, he suddenly froze. He knew someone would arrive quickly. This was an operation conducted with S.H.I.E.L.D.'s assistance after all. However, he didn't expect that it wouldn't just be S.H.I.E.L.D. personnel arriving. Besides the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents who were already nearby, 3 SUVs suddenly appeared without any warning. After being intercepted by S.H.I.E.L.D. personnel, everyone who got out of the cars were men in black suits, who then pulled out guns and confronted S.H.I.E.L.D. personnel. However, there seemed to be no intention of actually fighting. A white-haired old man, who was the leader, walked out with great presence, intending to talk with S.H.I.E.L.D. personnel. S.H.I.E.L.D. also dispatched the on-site person in charge. Both of them, facing the muzzles of the opposing personnel's guns, chatted and laughed in the middle. Seeing that no fight would break out, Bucky quietly returned to the boat, found a plastic bag to put the account book and money into, left the boat, and submerged into the water, holding his breath and swimming underwater for 7 or 8 minutes, directly leaving the area. Hey, Brother Fury, what's the background of that group? Because it was discovered that Billy was related to Frank, Nick Fury, who was very concerned about his old comrade, personally took charge of this operation, but he was the overall commander and did not appear just now. They are from the CIA. After learning that Billy's accomplice was William Rollins, we weren't surprised by this situation. Because he was a former senior CIA agent, and then, for his own selfish desires, during an operation, he deliberately framed Frank and his comrades who were not cooperating, leading to the sacrifice of multiple soldiers. Afterward, Frank blinded one of his eyes, and the CIA began investigating him, so he defected and escaped, becoming a true drug dealer. The CIA seemed to have been tracking him, but what? Bucky heard Fury being a bit vague, and suddenly thought of the many film and television works and games he had seen before crossing over, where the CIA was mostly depicted as an antagonist second only to terrorists. Suddenly, a thought appeared. It can't be that the pig has to be fattened before it's slaughtered, right? It certainly won't be because they need to collect enough evidence before bringing him to court. Fury did not make a clear judgment. This was something left to personal conviction, but everyone's views were tacitly understood. There won't be a problem, will there? Of course not. The CIA has no domestic law enforcement power, and they won't receive any information about this operation. Fury was very confident about this. Whether domestically or internationally, S.H.I.E.L.D. is the king among agents. Even if the CIA isn't bronze, at most it's gold. Speaking of this operation, did you find anything valuable? So, what Fury was more concerned about was whether Bucky had found anything and directly taken it. An account book, with detailed records of William Rollins' transactions with several of the largest gangs in the Brooklyn area, and some encrypted information. You should send someone to pick it up. Bucky also directly provided the account book. This thing was useless to him. Why would he need such evidence to give to those gang leaders, making them speechless and ashamed? His steel Kirin arm was enough to accomplish all of that. As for the bank key, Bucky was a bit curious about what it was, and was currently on his way to the bank on the nameplate to see what was inside first. I'll give you the account book. Can you arrange a police raid or joint law enforcement or something? After all, my home is in Brooklyn, and I hope it's cleaner here. Bucky himself fought crime to gain experience points, but for crime to be swiftly and severely combated, it still relied on law enforcement agencies. After receiving Fury's affirmative answer and chatting a few more words about Frank's situation, Bucky hung up the call. Bank. Billy Stone, Safe Deposit Box 1117. Please follow me. Bucky finished flipping through the account book. It wasn't just an account book, it was divided into several parts, one of which listed his several aliases and where he had hidden those things. Please, feel free. The bank personnel led Bucky to a private small room, where a locked metal box was placed on the table. Hey, the old man really didn't miss out on much. Bucky opened the safe deposit box with the key. Inside were several passports and identification documents, several stacks of US dollars, British pounds, marks, and other currencies, not a large amount, just for emergencies, and a Glock handgun. These were not the main focus. The main focus was a stack of bearer bonds, all from European banks, worth approximately over 1.3 million US dollars at the current exchange rate. And this was just one of William Rollins' places for hiding money. Not to mention the supply of drugs he still had, which was impacting the entire Brooklyn drug market. If Bucky hadn't encountered him early, he might have unified the Brooklyn underworld and become one of the future Punisher's supervillains. Bucky sighed slightly, put away the bonds and US dollars, and left the bank. After handing the account book to the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, this operation was considered to be concluded for now. However, Bucky did not go directly home. Instead, he drove to the riverside near the Brooklyn Bridge, found an uninhabited spot, and sat for a while. He wanted to inventory the gains from this operation first. The cash plus bearer bonds totaled over 1.5 million US dollars, which genuinely made Bucky, who was an ordinary person in his previous world, a little excited. But the gains were not just that. The monetary gains did excite Bucky a bit. These were spoils of war from completing a mission, and getting rich overnight always easily stimulated the nerves. But this was not Bucky's biggest gain tonight. Tonight's biggest gains were Billy Russo and William Rollins. Just taking out these two guys didn't yield many rewards, it was merely a daily bounty. However, to Bucky's surprise, these two turned out to be the Punisher's enemies, directly completing the main quest of the Punisher's series of missions. System information. For successfully defeating Billy Russo and William Rollins, two masterminds, the main quest, Revenge, of the series mission, Punisher Origin, has been completed. You have gained 2,000 experience points and received 2 random item boxes, Blue Rare. Note: the series mission, Punisher Origin, still has main quests that can be triggered. You need to make contact with Frank Castle and figure out the trigger method yourself. Although Frank had avenged himself, he was still just Frank, not the Punisher. This was only part of his origin story, and the next step should be to help him become the Punisher. But thinking of his 2 children, Bucky hesitated a bit. Perhaps letting go of hatred and focusing on his family and children again would be the most correct choice for Frank. Let him choose for himself. This is up to him, Bucky has no intention of interfering, he will only wait for the result. Even without the Punisher's origin, the Punisher still appeared, and there will be opportunities to trigger missions from him in the future, so it doesn't matter if he doesn't appear. Anyway, let nature take its course. Let's get back to the rewards. 2,000 experience points, 2 blue rare grade boxes. As expected of a series mission for a well-known anti-hero like the Punisher, the rewards are extraordinary. With these 2,000 experience points, plus the previous 2 times dealing with Billy and his subordinates, and the last time dealing with Billy and William, Bucky leveled up directly. System information. Experience points sufficient, now upgraded. Character level 4. Experience points 6,704,000. Gained 1 free attribute point. Gained 1 free perk point. System, add free attribute point to intelligence, and perk point to contagion. System information. Allocation complete. Character, James Buchanan Barnes. Level 5. Body 8, Athletics 7, Annihilation 7, Brawling 8. Reflexes 8, Handgun 7, Assault 7, Blades 7. Technical 4, Engineering 2, Crafting 4. Intelligence 9, Hacking Protocol 2, Quick Hack 2. Cool 11, Stealth 8, Cold Blood 3. Health, 210 210ths. Stamina, 155 155ths. New Quick Hack perk talent, Contagion. Contagion. Your aggressive quick hack skills will additionally spread to one hostile target within 20 meters. After leveling up, health plus 10, stamina plus 5, and the usual daily street activities, along with this relatively big operation, increased Bucky's close-range combat specialization brawling by 1 point. This refers to close-range combat, including but not limited to fists and cold weapons. As long as the enemy is at close range, Bucky will gain more damage bonuses. Engineering, crafting, quick hack, hacking protocol, stealth, and cold blood, these specializations used in daily life and operations, also improved accordingly. However, once crafting reached 4, it was limited by the technical attribute being only 4 points, so crafting items after that would no longer yield experience points. But Bucky still chose to continue adding to intelligence, hacking and crafting are for the late game, so it's even more important to specialize. Leveling up one first will show results faster. The same goes for perks. Bucky chose the Quick Hack perk talent Contagion under the intelligence attribute, so his skill Electromagnetic Short Circuit could hit 2 people at once, greatly alleviating the problem of excessively long cooldowns. After leveling up, Bucky didn't rush to open the boxes, but instead returned home first. Opening boxes, such a sacred matter, of course requires bathing and changing clothes, applying the face cream bought for Sky on his face, and then meditating for an hour with crossed legs. System information. Open 2 random item boxes. Blue rare obtained item, Netwatch NetDriver MK.3, obtained item, projectile launch system. Netwatch NetDriver MK.3, network access pod. Blue rare, 4 quick hack plug-in slots, can quick hack targets or devices scanned by Kuroshi optics. Quick hack damage plus 10%. RAM recovers 3 extra every 60 seconds. Aggressive quick hacks can additionally spread to 1 target. Projectile launch system. ARM cyberware. Blue rare, can fire various types of projectiles. Good heavens. Bucky stared at the 2 items he had opened, stunned for he didn't know how long, then suddenly jumped 3 feet high, vigorously and continuously punching, silently shouting. Awesome. Absolutely awesome. I might really be a European emperor. The blue rare network access pod, like quick hack plugins, needs to be crafted with anti-human orange legendary grade quick hack components. This is equivalent to opening an orange legendary item directly from a blue rare box. Moreover, these powerful additional attributes directly gave Bucky 2 more quick hack skill slots, and there was also an additional spread effect, allowing the electromagnetic short circuit skill to hit 3 targets at once. A tremendous sense of happiness filled Bucky's heart, making him want to break into a song and dance rap. System, implant the network access pod, implant the projectile launch system into the right arm. With a thought from Bucky, his brain and right arm were enveloped in red and blue neon blocks. Another strange sensation, and then several metallic lines gradually appeared on his right forearm, extending from the elbow to the wrist. With another thought, his right forearm suddenly made a mechanical sound, breaking apart, and a missile rack rose from within, with a cigar-sized missile on it. This thing was also incredibly powerful. Its item description, handheld missile launch system, no exaggeration, was truly apt. The missile on it was even more powerful and had a larger explosion radius than an RPG. Moreover, it could load different types of missiles, such as electric shock, incendiary, or chemical attributes, causing corresponding explosive effects. However, unlike in games where one installation means infinite refills, Bucky needed to craft missiles himself, just like crafting bullets. One missile was equivalent to a magazine of ordinary bullets and required 12 ordinary item components. But 12 bottles of water for an enhanced RPG is a very worthwhile trade. If this thing could only be used by himself, Bucky would have the heart to sell weapons. After playing with the pop-out and retracting a few times, Bucky, with a thought, unloaded the missile and put it back into his system inventory. Having a missile stored in his arm all the time, and not for entertainment like the ex-wife kind, was a bit awkward. He'd install it when he needed to use it. Then, a red and blue neon block flashed in Bucky's hand, and a small device appeared. It was the mind control device that Hydra used to exploit the Winter Soldier. But Bucky didn't directly disassemble it, even though a blank network access pod could yield blue rare quick hack components. Instead, he solemnly stored it in his system inventory, and then added a note to this small item himself, proving that the Winter Soldier was once ruthlessly and repeatedly exploited by Hydra. He wanted to never forget his original intention. One of the biggest reasons he worked so hard to become stronger was to return the pain Hydra had inflicted on him, in full, wasn't it? It was early morning. How's the new school? Did you make any friends? Bucky, in a good mood, asked Sky while eating breakfast. Xiaojiahuo, little kid, was already a mixed-race Asian, with a face that leaned more towards Eastern aesthetics, making it harder for her to be accepted by white people and other minority groups. She also had experiences she didn't want to bring up. Bucky was worried that she wouldn't dare to make friends at school, then be labeled as isolated, and subsequently be bullied by a few girls. It's okay, Sky only replied with that. Sure enough, she hadn't properly communicated with the other children. But Bucky really had no experience in this area. School matters could only be handled by Sky herself. He could only hope that no bad boys or girls would bully her. I'll give you a task. Find a classmate, introduce yourself, and chat a bit. If you can make a friend, I'll take you to Coney Island this weekend. How about that? Then I'll try. Sky was initially reluctant, but upon hearing that Bucky would take her out to play, her big eyes sparkled as she nodded. After chatting with Xiaojiahuo, little kid, for a while and finishing breakfast, Bucky opened the door and sent Sky off to school with her nanny. As soon as the two walked away, and before he could close the door next door opened. Morning, Hill. Hey, what did I do to upset you again? Maria's graceful figure appeared, along with her cold, beautiful face and eyes full of resentment. Please come in, make yourself at home. Hill huffily walked past Bucky and entered the house, leaving Bucky politely addressing the empty air. Coffee, bacon and eggs, yogurt with mixed fruit. Have some, or you won't have the energy to be angry. Bucky offered a hearty breakfast, and Hill didn't stand on ceremony. She picked up a crispy piece of bacon and chewed it with a crunch, as if venting her anger. You're untrustworthy, you don't keep your word. We agreed to act together, but you abandoned me halfway. Oh, right. Bucky lightly thumped his palm with his fist, thinking he had forgotten something. He had left Hill in the safe house last night when he was chasing Billy. For this, I offer my sincerest apologies. Bucky exaggeratedly bowed, apologizing without a hint of remorse. His and Frank's actions last night were indeed not suitable for Hill to see. Perhaps after finding Frank, he subconsciously decided to leave Hill behind. Hill glared fiercely at Bucky, continuing to vent her anger on the bacon, and even stabbed the 2 poached eggs to a pulp with a butter knife. Tisk, why such a rush to fry each other? But despite her anger, she knew that she wouldn't get a sincere apology from Bucky. She had followed them to the yacht later and seen the scene of blood flowing like a river, and Billy's fate. However, she also learned about the grudges between Billy and Frank. Although she still resisted Frank and Bucky's methods, she truly couldn't bring herself to voice her opposition. Putting herself in their shoes, if someone had killed her loved one and harmed her 2 children, facing a mortal enemy, she couldn't imagine if she would make what she considered the right choice, handing the crime over to legal judgment, rather than taking blood revenge herself. And you still owe me an answer. Hill didn't just come to be angry, she was also waiting for the answer Bucky had promised her earlier, to tell her who he really was. About who I am. Well, since you want to hear it, it all starts in 1942. Why don't you start from 1922? Hill subconsciously thought Bucky was going to be flippant again, starting from his grandpa's generation or something. Alright, then let's start from 1922. That year I was 5, and I met the first friend of my life, Steve Rogers. Stop, hold on. Hill still thought Bucky was making up a story, and she rolled her eyes impatiently. Are you writing a novel? You can tell this to Agent Coulson, he's Captain America's loyal fan. Wait, are you serious? However, Hill received a slightly helpless but very serious look from Bucky in response, and was instantly stunned. Don't tell me you're James Buchanan Barnes. It would make more sense if you were his descendant. Hill had never considered this possibility. Who would connect Johnny, with his long hair and stubble, always acting improperly, with the soldier beside Captain America during World War II? But looking closely now, he really did bear a striking resemblance to Bucky Barnes, whom she had seen once or twice at the Captain America Memorial Museum. Genuine, no substitutions. I am the man behind Captain America, well, to his diagonal rear, Bucky Barnes. How do you prove it? Tell me a secret only you would know. Hill blurted that out, and then immediately blushed. She had been careless, not thinking it through, and sure enough, she heard Bucky chuckle. Then I could just make something up that you wouldn't know was true or false. Besides, Bucky Barnes isn't some celebrity, at most he's Captain America's sidekick. I don't need to pretend to be him, do I? Anyway, if you don't believe me, you can go ask Howard Stark for confirmation. Quote. Then what exactly happened to you, that you still haven't changed? That's another story. Back then, Bucky repeated the same story he had used to fool Howard, substituting Hydra with a mysterious evil organization, which was the most truth he could reveal, to Hill again. Quote. As she listened, Hill's beautiful, large eyes widened, and her mouth slightly parted, vividly illustrating the word, dumbfounded. It was even more bizarre than Bucky being Bucky. Well, since the person in front of her was Bucky Barnes, only such an experience would be reasonable, right? This abnormal normalcy made Hill feel a bit dizzy. After a while, Bucky had even finished watching the morning news and typed for a bit on the computer before Hill came to her senses. Then she realized no one was in front of her. Well, even if he was Bucky Barnes, he was still Johnny, that guy who always annoyed people. Or perhaps, this was his true nature, and he wasn't deceiving her about everything. In any case, Hill grudgingly accepted this premise, and the feeling of a legendary figure being right beside her was actually quite exciting. I finally understand why Howard Stark, one of SHIELD's founders, has such a good relationship with you, and why you have so much freedom to have the agency cooperate with you. Yes, it's all thanks to Howard. Otherwise, I'd probably be like Steve back then, caught by S.H.I.E.L.D. and have my blood drawn every day. You're just talking nonsense. We're not like that at all. You don't know how many tubes of blood Steve had drawn back then. Can you tell me about what happened back then? Actually, it's not just Agent Coulson, I'm also very curious about it. You clearly didn't recognize me. My hairline brother guessed it after a few glances. Alright, I wanted to ask about Ms. Peggy Carter. I'm not very familiar with my sister-in-law. Back then, it was actually quite reasonable to think that Maria Hill was Peggy Carter's secret fangirl. They were both strong women, both ambitious, and both wanted to achieve great things. Peggy Carter was one of SHIELD's founders, and Maria Hill would become the future Commander Hill. Bucky told Hill some things from back then. Of course, he didn't try to flirt with Peggy at the time, but Peggy only had Steve in her eyes, which had nothing to do with him now. Hill listened with great interest, and her mood gradually calmed down. Actually, not many people know my identity. It's limited to Howard, Fury, Coulson, Frank, and you. Secrecy is naturally required. I mean, in daily interactions, just treat me as Johnny. A name is just a code name, I am still me. Quote. I'll try. Hill knew that Bucky was talking about the most natural way of getting along, but knowing was one thing, and doing it was another. She wasn't the future Commander Hill who had seen countless black technologies, superpowers, and immortals. She still needed some time to digest the facts. I'm going out. Do you want to come? Of course. But Hill quickly suppressed all her emotions. Whether it was Bucky or Johnny, they were her mission targets, and she still had to complete the mission. Bucky was going to the bank to have an agent process those bearer bonds, convert them all into US dollars, and then inject them into his company. Yes, Bucky also had a company, but it was naturally a shell company, registered overseas with Howard's help. Under the name of an enterprise, he would make capital injections, then invest, do charity, etc., which could reasonably avoid a large portion of taxes. Moreover, with this large sum of money, he didn't have to wait for the copied books to sell well to have already made his first pot of gold. When he really wanted to make some investments, it would be more convenient. After finishing these, he went to a computer store in the mall and ordered 30 top-configured computers in one go. "Why are you buying so many computers?" Hill didn't ask much about why Bucky had so many bearer bonds and cash before, but now she was genuinely curious. "You'll know then." Bucky wasn't planning to hide his abilities from Hill, but no amount of explanation was as good as a demonstration, so he kept her in suspense for now. Last time, it was just bad luck. Computers weren't a household essential electronic device in that era, and they happened to be sold out, waiting 3 days for new stock. This time, the supply was ample, and he bought them directly from stock. Bucky also paid extra for express delivery, and they were delivered to his home the same day. Then came Hill's once again dumbfounded sight of disassembly. First, he disassembled all the brand new computers into loose parts, and then broke down each component one by one. Yes, Bucky bought so many computers just to disassemble components. With the Blue Rare Network Access Pod, Bucky's quick hack slot expanded to 4, requiring the crafting of 2 new plugins. And 486 computers had a small chance of disassembling purple Epic grade quick hack components, but the probability was very touching. It took a full 30 computer motherboards, CPUs, monitors, etc., to disassemble only 11 Epic grade components, which made Bucky question again whether he might not be a European emperor. But it was enough. System, crafting quick hack plugins, contagious infection, and sonic shock. System information. Consumes 50 excellent quick hack plugins, 30 rare, 10 epic. Crafts 1 green excellent grade contagious infection and 1 sonic shock. Contagious infection non-lethal poisons 3 targets within an 8-meter radius and spreads to an additional 2 targets within a 20-meter radius, causing them to experience extreme physical pain, including but not limited to headaches, vomiting, tinnitus, and abdominal pain. Costs 3 RAM, lasts 6 seconds, cooldown 15 seconds. Sonic shock. Creates a violent sound in the target's ear, causing the target to become deaf, dizzy, and lose physical balance. Costs 1 RAM, lasts 30 seconds, cooldown 10 seconds. Although Bucky had a new network access pod network monitor Net Drive 3, the electromagnetic short circuit skill could also jump to 3 targets, but 3 was still too few and difficult to handle situations with many people. Contagious infection was different. 3 targets within 8 meters, then spreading to 2 more, and with network access pod and specialization bonuses, jumping to 2 more, affecting a total of 7 targets. Although the damage was a bit small and couldn't kill ordinary people, if Bucky cooperated himself, it would be very useful in situations with many subordinates, like Billy and Rollins. Moreover, it could be used with electromagnetic short circuit and sonic shock, instantly controlling up to 11 targets. As for choosing sonic shock as the last skill, it was because although this skill was single target control, it had good effects, a long duration, and a short cooldown, making it convenient for Bucky to deal with more situations. Bucky's current 4 skills, 1 for detection and positioning, 1 for high damage, 1 for area damage and crowd control, and 1 for single target control, were quite reasonably matched. And he had also transformed from a rookie mage into a qualified one, no longer just capable of throwing small fireballs, but able to handle many situations with just magic. As for Hill, she was dumbfounded for the nth time that day, still not accustomed to Bucky's continuous unconventional displays. She returned home somewhat dazed, continuing to digest the facts. As for whether it would scare her, Bucky wasn't worried at all. This was the future Commander Hill, who had seen countless grand scenes, could chat and laugh with legends, magnates, and immortals, and could even shush people and make dark sarcastic remarks. His little superpower was a piece of cake. When Sky came home in the evening, the computer boxes and discarded parts had been cleaned up. During dinner, Bucky asked her about her school day, and the Xiaojiahuo little kid proudly said that she and a classmate named Mary had introduced themselves to each other and even had lunch together. Bucky praised the Xiaojiahuo little kid well, and also eased his worries a bit. And at night, Bucky told the Xiaojiahuo little kid a bedtime story, coaxed her to sleep, and then left home again. When he arrived at his silver gray Mustang, Hill just arrived and, as before, directly opened the door and got into the car. Where are we going tonight? Still regular activities. Sort of. Tonight, we're going to the old place. The old place. That nightclub. Hill came wearing a black combat uniform, and saw Bucky dressed similarly, originally thinking Bucky was going on a street patrol again. Yeah, but this time it's not for a date, but to have a chat with that boss Kevin. Tisk, last time wasn't really. Are you going to take on that gang? Yeah, the police's efficiency is a bit low. I don't care about others, but knowing there's someone constantly breathing and polluting the air, I don't want to wait another day. Bucky had spent nearly $100,000 on computers just to get the quick hack plugin working. He wouldn't just let it sit quietly in his mind, he had to see its effects. He stepped on the accelerator, and the car sped away. Bucky was itching to get started. Inside the silver-gray Ford Mustang, after only a few minutes of silence, Maria Hill listened to the radio music and the engine sound, and couldn't help but yawn. Upon seeing this, Bucky noticed that even with foundation, she still had faint dark circles under her eyes. This made him feel a little embarrassed. He had a system sleep function. Whenever he was tired, he could close and open his eyes, and in the blink of an eye, he would be full of energy. However, he had overlooked that Hill was just an ordinary person. Even after SHIELD's rigorous physical training, she was not an Iron Man. After several consecutive days of non-stop work, she could certainly persevere, but her body honestly showed its reactions. Drink some water. Bucky waited for Hill to finish her yawn while she was looking out the window, then took out a pyramid-shaped bottle of mineral water from his system backpack. Hill took it and took a sip. Her large, beautiful eyes instantly widened slightly. Her taste buds were immediately conquered by the clear, sweet sparkling water. One sip went down, cooling her to the core, but it wasn't the kind of cold that caused a headache. Instead, it was a very moist coolness that flowed down her throat into her stomach. The slight heat caused by her faint drowsiness instantly vanished, and she felt completely refreshed. Hill couldn't help but take another sip, slowly savoring the feeling of tiny bubbles gently touching her mouth and taste buds. Then she examined the bottle of drink. Vatnajökull sparkling water. What brand is this? I've never even heard of it. As long as you like it. Bucky just smiled. He had obtained it from opening a box during a routine bounty hunt. It increased maximum endurance and endurance recovery speed. When Bucky used it on others, it also had the effect of restoring physical and mental energy. It was a pity that it wasn't mass-produced, and it wasn't a major solution. Bucky had thought about giving Hill a super soldier serum produced by the system, but unfortunately, that required 6 body and 6 reflexes, which was the physical limit for ordinary people, and Hill didn't meet the requirements. This was just a small token of his regard. With Hill invigorated, Bucky drove the car to the nightclub they had visited last time. Hello. Oh, Billy, my brother, why are you calling me so soon? What did you say? Kevin, the master of the nightclub, answered his mobile phone in his office. His words were polite, but there was no smile on his face. As he listened, his expression changed, appearing suspicious, yet his eyes couldn't help but reveal a hint of greed. Master. After Kevin hung up the phone, the sturdy short guy and the fat bearded man next to him walked over. That guy Billy suddenly said he had an extra batch of goods and asked if I wanted them. If so, the price would be the original one, but only for tonight. Master, there won't be any tricks, will there? Who cares about tricks? If that pretty boy dares to play tricks, I'll kill him. One of the two henchmen was cautious, the other reckless, and Kevin was still a bit indecisive. Call our brothers, bring more people, and bring your gear. We're going. Kevin finally couldn't resist the temptation of having goods in stock, because Billy's goods were indeed in high demand and sold the best. As for whether there was any problem, if there wasn't, then fine. If there was, it would be a good chance to settle the score with that fake pretty boy for raising prices without reason. However, he didn't know that the person who called him was actually outside the nightclub, waiting for him to leave with his brothers. She would then skillfully blend in, create a little chaos, and then enter his office. Kevin, with just his 2 henchmen, gathered 20-odd brothers and headed menacingly to the agreed location. Brooklyn Docks, where Billy had ambushed Bucky last time. Where are the fake people? Kevin saw that it was pitch black with no one in sight and thought to himself that if that Billy dared to play tricks on him, next time he would find two people who were well endowed, good in bed, and into that kind of thing, and make sure they served him well. However, just as he was telling his brothers to get out of the car, to be alert, and then about to call Billy, blinding lights suddenly flared up ahead, and he suddenly felt intense pain all over his body, dizziness, nausea, difficulty breathing, stars in his eyes, severe abdominal pain. He had been sick before, but he had never experienced a headache, flu, vomiting, and diarrhea all at once. Every part of his body was incredibly uncomfortable. This unprecedented level of agony made Kevin, who was used to being a master and enjoying luxury, widen his eyes and pass out instantly. The two henchmen closest to him, and 4 other people nearby, were in similar situations, clutching their heads, bending over, dry heaving, and wailing non-stop. But that wasn't all. 3 more people, with an arc of electricity flashing on their bodies, instantly foamed at the mouth, convulsing and falling to the ground. And another person suddenly screamed, clutching his ears, and sat twisted on the ground, trying to stand but unable to. Nearly half of the 20-odd people instantly collapsed, but all of this happened in a flash of lightning, and the others hadn't even had time to react. But at that moment, in the darkness behind the group, a light suddenly appeared, and a streak of flame instantly cut through the darkness. Boom! A violent roar erupted around 6 or 7 people on the right, releasing a green mist that enveloped them. Instantly, these people became like those who were dry heaving and wailing. What's going on? Fake, if you have the guts, come out. The remaining 6 or 7 unharmed people finally reacted, filled with shock and anger, but even more so with fear of the unknown. Bang! But at that moment, a black shadow suddenly sprang out from an oblique direction, like a black panther pouncing on its prey, arriving in an instant. It kicked one person fiercely, sending him flying like a cannonball towards another. The 2 slammed hard into a car, both passing out without a sound. Then, like a tiger entering a flock of sheep, he lunged left and right, and with 3 punches and 2 kicks, he quickly dealt with the remaining few. He then continued to finish off the constantly wailing people one by one. Before long, the surroundings became completely silent. Job done, phew, satisfying. Bucky drove out of the nightclub with Hill and sped to this location. First, he had Hill use the car lights to attract the opponent's attention, then used a quick hack combo of contagious infection, electromagnetic short circuit, and sonic shock. Following that, he even launched a toxic damage arm missile, and finally easily dealt with the remaining few. It seems I still underestimated the effect of contagious infection. Although it's not lethal and the damage is minimal, even ordinary people with good physiques won't be reduced to critical health. However, ordinary people find it very difficult to resist such intense pain. Even when the effect wears off, they won't recover quickly. The duration of the effect is actually much longer. Although using all 3 skills together isn't as effective as continuous missile fire, missiles are expensive. One shot costs 12 common components, and higher grade ones require corresponding components, which I can't afford to burn through right now. All in all, Bucky was very satisfied with this operation. After all the upgrading and crafting, the hacker build was finally showing some good results, which was not easy. Brooklyn, 18th Street. Near the block, an unassuming van was parked. Maria Hill was in the driver's seat, but Bucky was nowhere to be seen. However, it wasn't long before Hill heard the sound of the rear compartment door opening. She was already used to Bucky's mysterious appearances. Sure enough, after getting out of the car, she saw Bucky, dressed in black, appear silently, carrying another black guy on his shoulder. This wasn't the first, but the 5th. 4 others were lying in the compartment. Is there more? This is the last one, let's go. Closing the compartment door, the 2 drove away. Who would have thought that one of Brooklyn's largest gangs would be wiped out overnight? The 5 people in the van were all Kevin's adjutants, small bosses in charge of several nearby blocks. Counting himself and 2 followers who helped him, all the powerful people in the gang had been taken care of by Bucky. That's why Hill felt both emotional and conflicted. Actions that went against her principles achieved what her principles sought but couldn't accomplish. However, Bucky also did a good job of saving her face, always adhering to his agreement with her, and he didn't kill anyone during this period. She knew that if Bucky really wanted to act, he wouldn't need to go through so much trouble. She had seen the scenes of Bucky and Frank causing rivers of blood. Moreover, there was a place where she could be useful. Bucky was responsible for taking care of the people, and Hill was responsible for the follow-up, notifying the police through S.H.I.E.L.D. about the criminal evidence Bucky collected from Kevin's office and various deputies' homes, so they could face legal sanctions. It could be considered a mutual compromise. Bucky accommodated Hill's feelings, and Hill was gradually accepting Bucky's methods. After a night of work, the sky had turned gray. On the way back, Hill felt a bit sleepy again and wanted another bottle of the glacier sparkling water Bucky gave her, but she was too embarrassed to ask. And even if she asked, Bucky didn't have any left, he only got that one bottle from opening a box. What do you think if I open a nightclub? However, just as Hill was about to doze off, she heard Bucky suddenly ask her this. Aren't you writing a novel? Hill felt that Bucky was a bit impulsive. She had glanced at the novel Bucky was writing and thought it was quite good, so why did he suddenly think of opening a nightclub? If Kevin is caught and the gang is cleaned out, his assets will be confiscated and auctioned, right? I happen to have some spare money, so I was thinking of taking over that place. It could be a base, so I don't have to do everything at home, and it could also be a channel for collecting street information. Hill listened, perking up. This guy actually had some ideas. Bucky certainly had ideas. Although he had been active on the streets recently, it was because it was a fast way to gain experience points in the early stages. And only gangs were suitable targets. It wasn't yet the time when, after the appearance of superheroes, supervillains would swarm like rats in a nest, generation after generation. But even when the superhero era arrives, there will be many street heroes, and their villains will include many tough characters. Bucky felt that having a channel to collect information and stay updated on street movements was very necessary. But can you run a nightclub? Hill asked, knowing Bucky was a World War II hero, then a spy, an assassin, a miraculous super-powered individual, and perhaps a decent novelist but a nightclub owner. It's just doing business. Find a capable manager, and let the manager do things for me. I'll just provide the money. Hill rolled her eyes, thinking, this is truly logical and hard to refute. No, why are you staring at me like that? Drive properly. We've known each other for a while now, and I think, Ms. Hill, who is beautiful, charming, dignified, generous, shrewd, capable, and very responsible and righteous, is a bit too overqualified for her current job. Hill listened, turning her head away, looking out the car window. After a moment of silence, she replied, HMPH, you know that, yet you just cause me trouble and annoy me in various ways. And you don't need to flatter me so much. What were you doing before? Just tell me what you want to do. Do you think becoming the actual controller of one of Brooklyn's largest nightclubs, collecting all kinds of information from Brooklyn and even all of New York, secretly obstructing gray and black illegal activities, or perhaps connecting some people who need help with others who also need help, so both sides can benefit mutually and you can also gain advantages from it? Would such a job be very interesting? Isn't that the work of a broker or an intermediary? Yes, the Queen of Brooklyn, hidden in the darkness, like a spider, spreading her web to every corner of New York. All right, it does sound good, but don't forget, I am a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. My goal is to utilize my abilities at S.H.I.E.L.D. I cannot leave S.H.I.E.L.D. Of course, Bucky didn't expect someone he had just met for a few days to quit her job and work for him just because he hyped it up and painted a picture. You are still Special Agent Hill, but isn't your job also to assist me? It's just that the job content has changed slightly. He just thought it was very interesting and wanted Hill to do it. As for whether she was Special Agent Hill, he didn't care much. So you want me to work for you for free? Your perspective on this issue is quite unique, but also very reasonable. I am strongly against free riding, and I detest it. So you can also think of it this way. You're not just working for me for free, you're also working for S.H.I.E.L.D. for free. Since you're still going to be an agent, you'll definitely have to share the resources you gain here with S.H.I.E.L.D., right? So, Bucky had this idea, but he didn't want to build it up himself, nor did he want to be some nightclub king. Therefore, he thought of cooperating with S.H.I.E.L.D., contributing some money himself, and letting S.H.I.E.L.D. provide people and resources to set up the framework, after which he could share. Of course, it had to be a trustworthy S.H.I.E.L.D., not Hydra, so Hill was the best candidate, both trustworthy and somewhat acquainted. As for whether this would lead to the disappearance of Commander Hill, the trajectory of the stories Hill knew about Bucky didn't have much impact. Commander Hill was already her highlight moment, After that, S.H.I.E.L.D. disbanded, she looked for jobs everywhere, and finally turned into dust with the Black Nick Fury, and then had no more screen time. But there's no rush, take your time to think about it. So Bucky also believed in going with the flow. Even if Hill ultimately refused, it didn't matter, he would just think of other ways, as it was just a spur-of-the-moment idea. Hill was indeed undecided for a moment. What Bucky said truly tempted her, but this was, after all, a choice regarding her work and future path, and it was completely different from her long-held ideas about life and ideals. She needed to calm down and think it over carefully. Chapter 51. System Information. Defeated gang leader, completed daily bounty, gang rewarded 600 experience points, random item box green excellent 1. Opened random item box, obtained item, genuine leather ink tattoo, 1. Genuine leather ink tattoo green excellent. A tattoo made with special genuine leather ink, with nano-level circuitry etched simultaneously with the tattoo, achieving the same function and effect as the Smart Link hand cyberware. Directly connects to cybernetic eyes and weapon smart systems, providing real-time tracking calculations to activate the smart weapons tracking bullet effect. Customizable tattoo patterns, limited to the back of the hand and forearm. No additional cybernetic modifications to the corresponding hand can be added simultaneously after tattooing. It was already dawn when Barnes sent Hill home. He followed his usual system sleep, recuperated, then bathed, changed, and applied whitening cream to his face. Although it was just opening a green box, the sense of ritual could not be omitted. As expected, a good item was opened. Cyberpunk system weapons are divided into 3 categories: kinetic, technical, and smart. Kinetic weapons. Bullets can ricochet, and with the ballistic coprocessor, hand cyberware, the ricochet trajectory can be precisely calculated. Technical weapons. Electromagnetic rail acceleration weapons that can be charged, and the bullets fired have extremely high penetration. Smart weapons. Can fire tracking bullets, and with the aid of Smart Link, bullets can arc after being fired, automatically adjusting direction to hit locked targets. With this cyberware, Barnes could use the special functions of smart weapons. However, if he were to get a tattoo, what pattern would he choose? An arrow piercing 2 hearts, Barnes and Steve, best buddies for life. No thanks. After thinking for a moment, Barnes's mind moved, and a dark red tattoo appeared on the back of his hand. It was a skull with 2 curved fangs and flames burning on its head, the classic samurai band logo from Cyberpunk 2077. System, Craft G58 submachine gun. System information. Consume 30 common item components, 25 excellent item components, crafting completed. Kong Dao G58 classic green excellent micro submachine gun, smart weapon, 911 damage, 54 rounds per second fire rate, additional 4 to 7 electromagnetic damage, 8 DPS. Before dawn, Barnes went to the rooftop, holding a micro submachine gun that looked somewhat like a modified Glock automatic pistol, a slightly larger pistol with a foregrip and shoulder stock, but with a stronger sense of technology and a smart tracking system installed on top of the gun body. There is no man who doesn't love shooting guns. Barnes played with the exquisite, high-tech weapon in his hand for a while, feeling quite fond of it. Then he placed a soda can in the distance. He raised the gun and aimed. In the field of vision of his cybernetic eye, which was connected to the hand's smart link, it truly looked like a game's HUD. A crosshair appeared in the center of the vision, and a large border around the crosshair indicated the maximum range of bullet tracking. The bullet could automatically adjust and calibrate with a maximum arc of 60 degrees. Barnes raised the gun, which already had a suppressor attached to its muzzle, then aimed at a spot next to the soda can and pulled the trigger. Thump, thump, thump. A sound like tearing paper, a line of fire traced an arc, and the soda can was torn to shreds in response, the beer inside exploding, a perfect visual effect. Amazing. Barnes nodded in satisfaction at the effect. He then set up 5 more soda cans. This time, he only used his cybernetic eye to lock onto the targets, then, without aiming, he pulled the trigger and swept across. A series of faint gunshots, and the 5 soda cans exploded almost simultaneously. Anyone holding this gun could directly infuriate a marksman to death. Barnes couldn't help but sigh. In the face of technique, humans are truly small and frustrated. A marksman who trains with thousands of bullets every day, one who can open a water bottle with a pistol shot, would be directly eliminated in terms of cost effectiveness by a rookie with this gun. However, although Barnes himself was a top marksman, using smart weapons still greatly improved his abilities, because Barnes's physical quality was also superhuman, and smart weapons could allow him to kill enemies more quickly. The next day, Barnes had a rare day of leisure. After so many things had happened consecutively, he wanted some quiet. Hill didn't come to find him either. She needed more rest and time to consider that proposal. "Uncle, I'm back, and I brought a friend." In the afternoon, when Sky came home from school, her first words made Barnes pause. She just made a new friend yesterday, and today she brought her home. She didn't want to go to the amusement park, so she hired someone, right? But when he saw Sky bring back a very beautiful and cute little girl with reddish-brown hair, Barnes felt relieved. "Uncle, this is my new friend, Mary." "Hello, I'm Mary Jane, you can also call me MJ." The little girl smiled, revealing a small canine tooth, which was very cute. Seeing the handsome uncle of her new friend a bit stunned, she greeted him cheerfully and generously. "Hello, I'm Johnny, it's nice to meet you, and I'm very happy that you became friends with Daisy." "Me too." Sky was going to school, so naturally, she couldn't just have Sky as her name. She also wanted to say goodbye to the past forever. After discussing it with Barnes, he gave her the name that originally belonged to Xiaojiahuo, little kid, in advance. However, now she was not Daisy Johnson, but Daisy Barnes. Barnes felt a bit confused. How did Mary Jane appear so soon? Is there going to be an elementary school version of Spider-Man? However, since there was Sky, it wasn't strange to have a little MJ. But would there be a little Peter Parker? He remembered Peter should be from Queens. So MJ and Peter Parker aren't neighbors yet. You entertain your little friend. Uncle has something to go out for. However, this was not the time to be stunned. He shouldn't scare away the friend Xiaojiahuo, little kid, had finally made. "Wait, Uncle, I brought MJ to see Harry Potter. I promised to give her a copy." "Oh, that's right. Wait a moment." Barnes put away all his Spider-Man conjectures, returned to his bedroom, and picked up a few copies of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone that the publisher had sent. Although this book was published by Howard's small publishing house, the printing speed was very fast. However, only 5,000 copies of the first edition were printed and sold in several bookstores and comic shops in Brooklyn. It had only been on sale for a few days and was still in the period of building reputation. This was probably how Xiaojiahuo, little kid, shared it with her new friend, and she learned about the book. Barnes was not in a hurry. He now had a lot of spare money and no longer needed this book as his first pot of gold. He didn't need to put effort into managing it, he would just let its reputation build up naturally. "Are you really the author of this book?" "It's not that I don't believe Daisy, but this book is written so well, I love it so much, it's really a bit unbelievable." MJ saw that Barnes not only gave her the book but also the Sorcerer's Stone concept art book that the publisher had just sent to Barnes and hadn't yet been released. Her initial curiosity and questions turned into shock. "As long as you like it, please share it with your friends if you can. Preferably, share it with a friend named Peter Parker." However, which version of Peter Parker would exist in this world? Night, Brooklyn. A newly opened nightclub called Lai Shang Nightclub. Saying it's newly opened is a bit inaccurate, more precisely, it has reopened. It was shut down a few days ago, which was big news. The FBI in India, in conjunction with the Brooklyn Police Department's narcotics and anti-gang units, launched a comprehensive sweep against several major gangs in their jurisdiction, including Kevin's gang in the 18th precinct. Although there's a slight difference from the truth. But it's impossible to tell the truth, that an extra-legal vigilante helped them take down a gang, and all the main leaders and their criminal evidence were sent to the police station. That's not called a warm-hearted citizen acting heroically, that's called provoking law and order. In short, this joint operation was decisive, swift, and powerful, greatly enhancing the government's credibility. And those arrested gang leaders were dealt with strictly, severely, and quickly. Especially Kevin, who entered legal proceedings immediately after his arrest, was tried at the fastest speed, his assets were directly seized, and he entered the auction process directly upon conviction. Then it was directly auctioned off by Bucky, who carried out simple renovations, handled the original fire safety and other hidden dangers, and changed the signboard. Lai Shang Nightclub opened just like that. This is the benefit of cooperating with S.H.I.E.L.D. A behemoth like S.H.I.E.L.D., with Howard, one of the people in power, speaking, when it operates, criminals in a mere district are powerless to resist. And after the nightclub opened, SHIELD's help was indispensable, or rather, SHIELD took care of everything. If the owner and legal representative's name hadn't been Robert Johnny Lind, Bucky would have felt like his idea had been freeloaded. The nightclub is open, aren't you coming to sit for a while? I know, I'll pay attention, but I trust Special Agent Hill's ability, you can rest assured too. Howard brought up again on the phone for Bucky to keep an eye on Hill, making Bucky feel once more that Howard had a keen eye for people. But in fact, Howard just wanted to use this opportunity to see what moves Alexander Pierce's direct subordinate, Nick Fury's favored newcomer, would make. He wasn't afraid of Hydra making small moves, instead, he hoped they would make as many moves as possible, making it easier to observe them in secret. Bucky, standing by the roadside, hung up the phone and walked towards the nightclub. There was still a long line in front of the nightclub. People coming to the club for fun wouldn't care if the owner had changed, they would only care if there was music and alcohol to let them release their passion without restraint. Bucky bypassed the crowded dance floor. This time, no one stopped him, the newly hired security guards actively made way. He opened the door with a password lock and entered the exclusive passage. The owner's exclusive room had changed its style, becoming a minimalist decor, which didn't look like a nightclub owner's room, but rather a SHIELD office. The room had changed, and the master naturally had changed too. How is it, are you used to it yet? Maria Hill sat behind a cool-toned, postmodern metal desk, exuding the aura of a cold and capable woman. Hearing Bucky's question, she didn't look up, still concentrating on the ledger. The specific matters can be left to the subordinates to complete, anyway, they are all your people, don't you trust them? Bucky took a bottle of pure water from the small refrigerator at the bar, poured a glass, and handed it to Hill. It's not about trust, but rather that I've suddenly been promoted, yet every subordinate has more experience and seniority than I do. If I don't make some kind of impression, how can I win their respect? Hill then put down what she was doing, took the water glass, took a small sip, and pinched the area between her eyes. You've worked hard. Bucky walked behind Hill, placed his hands on her shoulders, and gently massaged them. Hill didn't refuse, letting out a comfortable hum, but then added somewhat grumpily, it's all the trouble you've given me. But you look like you're enjoying it. Bucky was just a steel Kieran arm, not a completely emotionless man, so this thought remained only in his mind. But it was truly evident that compared to her initial reluctance to work with Bucky, and then her later indecision, Hill was now focused and invested. She was very good at and gradually grew to love this kind of work. Although she always dreamed of becoming a king of agents like 007. But in reality, management, dispatch, and command work suited her better. However, with the nightclub newly opened, Hill was still working hard to familiarize herself with it, and even after she became familiar with the nightclub's operations, there were still Bucky's ideas about intelligence gathering and so on, waiting for her to try and complete them little by little. It was conceivable that for a long time to come, Hill would not be much more relaxed than when she was working day and night shifts with Bucky before. And only when Hill was fully familiar with the business could the intelligence channels Bucky wanted start to yield results. So Bucky didn't disturb Hill's work. Hill buried herself in her paperwork again, while Bucky returned to the nightclub's operating area and sat at the bar for a while. The past few nights, Hill had accompanied him during his activities, and now suddenly he was alone, and would continue to be alone in the future. Bucky always felt an emptiness beside him. Yet, Hill was someone he himself had pushed away. There was more trust between them, but the distance had grown. But Bucky also knew this was inevitable. Hill couldn't follow him forever, nor would she become his little sidekick. He also didn't want to bury Hill's talent, which was why he helped her create a larger stage for her life. That's fine, it's freer to act alone, and there's no need for a 3-chapter agreement. Bucky downed a glass of Johnny Silverhand, his own concoction for the bartender, golden tequila plus bitters plus hot sauce plus beer. The rich bubbles, slightly bitter and extremely spicy taste, felt like his whole body was burning after one gulp. This made him feel that the drink perfectly matched his current mood. Bucky put down his glass, pressed down a banknote, and was about to turn and leave to continue his night activities, but at that moment, there was a commotion on the dance floor. Even amidst the loud music, Bucky's bionic ear filtered and caught shouts, curses, and the familiar sound of fists hitting people. Who was this, daring to cause trouble in his place? Although he was a hands-off boss, as the legal representative, Bucky still had a strong sense of ownership. Mainly, he had only seen such things on screen in his previous life, and now being able to think this way himself gave him a slight thrill. Bucky curiously approached and saw a group of customers circled around the edge of the dance floor, with shouts of, "I'll kill you, fool!" and "Stop fighting!" coming from inside. He quickly used his Keelan arm to part the crowd and entered the circle, where he saw a tall, strong young man straddling a younger, smaller handsome guy. He had already broken the corner of this fresh young man's eye and mouth and was still trying to throw punches, while a blonde beauty next to him called out but couldn't make him stop. Bucky grabbed the big guy's thick arm, making him unable to move. Daring to cause trouble on his turf, how impressive. The big guy was in a rage, his arm was grabbed, and he struggled hard, but found that he was motionless as if he was clamped by a machine tool. Not only that, but his body was out of control, and he was grabbed by one arm by a huge force, pulling him up. "Let go of me. Ow!" The big guy was about to curse when he felt a sharp pain in his arm. Looking at Bucky's half-smile, he knew he had met his match and instantly snapped out of his enraged state. "Fool, how dare you hit me?" The short guy, no longer oppressed by the big guy, jumped up forcefully, about to hit the big guy's knee. But he also felt a huge force, and was lifted up by Bucky's other hand. "Tony, are you all right? Hey, let him go." The blonde beauty in her early 20s next to him screamed when she saw this. Bucky was stunned again when he heard, "Tony." He looked closely at the short guy. Although his eyes and mouth were bruised, his handsome face was still evident, and those facial features that resembled someone else. Could it be? "You guys leave, you're not welcome here." Although he had a guess in his heart, he still pulled the two of them away without showing any emotion. "Hey, put him down. Do you know who he is?" The blonde beauty was indeed not an easy person to deal with. Seeing this, she yelled at Bucky arrogantly. "I probably know a lot more about who he is than you do," Bucky thought to himself, but he just gave the blonde beauty a cold look. "I don't know who he is, I only know that you're not welcome here." Bucky's look, as if he was looking at a dead person, made the blonde beauty instinctively shut up. She also realized that this might be the manager of this store, and she didn't dare to provoke such a person, so she immediately shut up obediently. Bucky then dragged the two, with the blonde beauty following behind, and they were all dragged to the back door. "Go, if you cause trouble here again, be careful, I won't be polite." "Are you being polite?" All three thought so, but no one was willing to suffer immediate losses. The three instinctively wanted to leave, but Bucky called out to the big guy again. "You go first, go separately, don't think about causing trouble near my store." "Wendy, let's go." The big guy didn't dare to show Bucky any disrespect, but he glared fiercely at the short guy Tony, and then called the blonde beauty Wendy. Wendy had been gazing at him affectionately, only looking at him with difficulty after hearing the big guy's words. "Danny, don't make it difficult for me, please, you go first, I'll call you later." "Wendy, please." "Ah." Bucky looked at the tearful big guy Danny, then at Wendy, and thought to himself, "This is so fresh and refined, this must be top-grade pre-Kingming Bilawachan, a tail probably costs more than 3,000 yuan. It seems I misunderstood Danny. Despite being such a big guy, he's a harmless golden retriever. Well, not entirely harmless, but he only bites when he's pushed too far." "Tony, are you all right? My house is nearby, should I take you there to get it treated?" Tony, however, seemed to be used to this. He smiled and waved his hand nonchalantly, and although there was no sarcasm, he said politely and distantly, "It's a minor injury, no need to go to your house. Let's stop here tonight. You can call a taxi yourself." Wendy was stunned, then looked at Tony with a gentle and resentful expression. It made Bucky feel goosebumps on his bulletproof skin implants. The two went back and forth, one deeply infatuated, the other heartless. Well, I don't know if there was a big bird in the nest, but in short, he was incredibly thick-skinned. Bucky felt awkward watching, but he wasn't awkward at all. After a scene that Bucky called brilliant, Wendy finally retreated, tearfully taking 3 steps back for every one forward. Tony was about to leave too, but then he heard the super strong man, who had been watching the show, suddenly say to him, "Don't go yet." "What do you want? Do you want me to thank you?" "Come on, I was just careless and didn't dodge, and I was about to fight back." "You were just meddling. Or are you also interested in me and have some improper thoughts about me?" "Although I'm not prejudiced, I'm not into that. Tony immediately started spewing, which made Bucky laugh. This venomous tongue, this clearly handsome face, but with an expression that made people want to slap him twice. 9 out of 10 he was the future flamboyant and promiscuous rich man. You unlucky brat, I can lift you with one arm, and you dare to say that to me? What if I really wall-pinned you? Then what do you want me to do? As soon as Bucky glared, this guy immediately took a step back, making a bear-like gesture as if to run. You look familiar. Are you Howard's son? Hey, your pickup line is too old-fashioned, isn't it? Tony was stunned when he heard this. His expression changed several times, and then he continued to play dumb. Bucky didn't bother with him, he just gave him the middle finger, then pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Hello, Howard, it's me, do you know where your son is? Bucky made the call, and just as he said one sentence, he suddenly darted forward, grabbed Tony by the back of his collar as he suddenly turned and ran, pulled him back, and shoved the phone to him. You want to run with that small physique? I'll give you 100 meters and you still can't outrun me. Just answer the phone honestly. Hello, it's me. Do you really know this violent maniac? What's his background that he knows you? What do you mean it's not the point? I feel like there's a big problem here. Alright, you're so long-winded, I'll go back. Tony's face fell when he heard the voice on the other end, but he still tried to change the subject. In the end, he reluctantly returned the phone to Bucky. Okay, I understand. It's a small matter. Let's go. Let's get your injury treated first, and then Jarvis will come to pick you up. Brother, who exactly are you? You seem very familiar with my old man. Tony also knew that he couldn't run away, so he simply accepted reality and walked ahead of Bucky in a straightforward manner, but his mouth was still busy. Johnny, owner of Lai Sheng nightclub. Bucky didn't take him back to the nightclub. He didn't want to serve this guy, nor did he want Hill to serve this guy, so he directly put him in the car and drove to a nearby hospital. And he didn't tell Tony that he was Bucky Barnes. The current Tony was not the future Iron Man, nor even the future rich man. He was just a prodigal son who spent his trust fund wandering around. He knew nothing about Bucky and Howard. And the two of them tacitly maintained this distance. Howard himself was so close to Bucky, frequently interacting with him. Wasn't it because he wanted to be at the forefront, to be a target to attract attention, so that danger would stay away from his family? It's just a pity that by a strange coincidence, I didn't go to the mountain, but the mountain came to me. Bucky never actively approached, but Tony actively wandered into his nightclub. Who can he complain to about this? Bucky's first meeting with the future Iron Man wasn't exactly pleasant. Well, mainly nephew Tony wasn't in a great mood. He wanted to try something new, but he overestimated the freshness of the green tea, and on an impulse, he suffered a loss right in front of his father's acquaintance. But as the saying goes, if you are not embarrassed, then others are. Bucky was made very awkward by Tony, who probably felt humiliated and kept chattering the whole way, trying to regain some face. Should he throw him out? This is nephew Tony. If he didn't throw him out, he felt his prosthetic ear would malfunction from all the talking. However, Bucky was not to be trifled with. When it came to rebutting others, whether it was the tricky angles or the unique approaches, he could rely on various techniques and flowery venomous remarks he had seen during the internet traffic era before his transmigration. Often, Tony would say a lot, and Bucky would shut him up with just one sentence. Fortunately, they arrived at the hospital soon, and their battle came to a temporary end. Jarvis, the white-haired old gentleman who had been the Stark family's butler for 2 generations, was already waiting at the hospital entrance. That's it, farewell. You seem unwilling to have more contact with me. Rebutting others relies more on experience and tactics than on quick wit. Tony couldn't win against Bucky, simply because he was still too naive. But in terms of intelligence, having inherited Howard's and surpassed him, he keenly noticed that Bucky seemed unwilling to have too much involvement with him, otherwise, he wouldn't have stopped the car over 100 meters away to let him out. This made him imagine many scenarios in his mind. What do you think? Am I supposed to regret not meeting you sooner? Bucky rolled his eyes impatiently and made a shooing gesture. Alright, anyway, thank you for the ride. Goodbye. Proud as Tony was, he naturally wouldn't be clingy. He opened the door and got out directly, but before closing the door, he said, "Your shop is quite good. I'll patronize your business again when I have time." Bang. After saying that, he slammed the car door shut and ran off. The current nephew Tony is still just a somewhat childish young man. It will be at least another 10 years or so until he turns over a new leaf. However, the encounter between Bucky and Tony was indeed an unexpected situation, which might have ripple effects, or perhaps not. But as the saying goes, let Howard worry about it, after all, it's his son. This matter came to an end, and Bucky didn't take it to heart. Howard probably disciplined Tony as well. With the trust fund in hand, controlling whether Tony's life could continue to be extravagant, Howard still had a lot of say. Presumably, nephew Tony would quiet down for a while. Bucky also returned to his own life, writing during the day and starting to try reading books on electronics, computers, and mechanical engineering. This wasn't a sudden whim after meeting nephew Tony, it was something he had always wanted to do. But it wasn't because he had a cyberpunk system that could craft items beyond his era. The system's crafting, in the final analysis, was a superpower. Bucky was just the user, he couldn't fully understand how it worked. So he wasn't trying to complement the system, but rather to enrich himself and prepare for the future. Bucky was concerned his system had a limit. Although his actions since transmigration had relied on the system's abilities, allowing him to solve any problem he encountered with ease. But these were all situations involving ordinary people. His system seemed very powerful, but in reality, its black technology content wasn't very high. Not to mention compared to the alien technology of this world, intelligent life in the universe beyond Earth could already perform warp travel and traverse wormholes. Even the future Earth technology representative, Iron Man, with his nanotech suit, Bucky couldn't say he could rival him. That was someone who could even go toe-to-toe with Thanos a couple of times. But what about himself? He was merely a legend of Night City, the infamous cyber psychosis V. Although Bucky's system seemed more magical, V could still exploit bugs. He had his advantages, such as the super soldier serum previously created by the system. But suitable enhancements for him weren't immediately available. And he hadn't been carried away by the continuous leveling up and strengthening, thinking that as long as he kept grinding on the streets, he would become invincible. He felt that besides the system, he should also look for other ways to become stronger. As the saying goes, the rich rely on technology, the poor rely on mutation. In terms of mutation, Bucky's idea was that if he encountered something like spider genes, Green Goblin serum, Extremis, etc., he would use the system to scan and create system versions. Following the serum's pattern, they should be weakened but with negative effects removed, perfectly suited for his own use. And in terms of technology, Bucky also planned to give it a try. He didn't have a very good specific idea yet, but it was always right to enrich himself. After all, he had the conditions. As someone who took the hacker crafting route, he primarily focused on intelligence attributes. The system's attribute bonuses greatly improved his memory, learning ability, and comprehension. With the attitude of being prepared and waiting for opportunities, Bucky began to try to learn about technology. Of course, the foundation of everything was mathematics, physics, and chemistry. Bucky bought books and went home to read them, only to realize his idea was a castle in the air. Strong comprehension was correct, but in terms of basic knowledge, let alone college, he had forgotten most of his middle school knowledge. Without a foundation, how could there be comprehension? So he started from the basics again. Fortunately, with strong learning ability and memory, Bucky finished reading middle school mathematics, physics, and chemistry in about 10 days. And thanks to system sleep, Bucky was also a sleepless warrior. He didn't forget to visit nightclubs at night and then grind experience on the streets. One morning, Bucky was thinking of continuing to immerse himself in his studies when he suddenly received a call from Howard. Something urgent has come up. Can you come to my place immediately? The sooner, the better. I'll wait for you at the usual spot. Okay, I'll be right there. Hearing Howard's slightly anxious tone, Bucky didn't ask further. He probably figured it wasn't something to discuss over the phone, so he drove directly to his laboratory in Brooklyn. What exactly happened? Look at this. Howard still didn't explain, but pointed to a video call window on the monitor. This is. Bucky went over and clicked play. The video showed a laboratory with a large, precise instrument in the center. In the middle of the instrument was a seat, where a spirited young man of 27 or 28 was sitting. This is footage S.H.I.E.L.D. obtained through special channels. It's from a secret military laboratory. S.H.I.E.L.D. was truly resourceful. Bucky continued watching. There was no sound in the video, so he naturally couldn't tell what they were doing. What experiment is this? Super soldier experiment. Huh, surprised. But actually, the military has never given up on trying to create another Steve, or rather, to create an army of super soldiers. Ever since Captain America emerged during World War II, the military had never given up trying to reverse engineer the secrets of the super soldier serum. Bucky naturally wouldn't find it strange. If the military didn't try to replicate the serum, if they weren't deeply disgusted by it and absolutely wouldn't allow such powerful super soldiers to appear again, if they didn't want to create a third super soldier, if they didn't want a super soldiers army. That would be truly bizarre. Moreover, the military's experiments hadn't been entirely unsuccessful. After all, this world is full of talented individuals, and super geniuses aren't limited to those Bucky knew. Sometimes, even without a super genius, massive human and resource support can still lead to success. Although the military had never managed to decipher the super soldier serum's formula, they continuously tried, using brute force and trial and error. They didn't create a super soldiers army, but they did create super soldiers. Among the fragmented memories in Bucky's mind, there were a few scenes where he fought a black man, who, along with a squad of soldiers, ambushed him and actually won. Though they didn't capture him, they did manage to scrap his metal Kylin arm. Therefore, Bucky wasn't surprised by the military's secret super soldier experiments. But the video Howard showed him, though the beginning was just preparation for the experiment, which he fast-forwarded through, suddenly made him exclaim and hit the pause button. What the *THTH this? In the video, the scholarly young man sitting in a large high-tech instrument was enveloped by intense green light emitted from the machine, then suddenly struggled in extreme pain, his body continuously expanding until he became a nearly 3-meter-tall green muscular giant. This sight made Bucky jump straight up. Hulk, you have an army, I have the invincible monster, Hulk. It appeared so early. Although Bucky had only seen The Incredible Hulk, he knew there was an earlier movie, Hulk, which caused Marvel heavy losses, and The Incredible Hulk also took place long after Bruce Banner became Hulk. His name is Bruce Banner, a World Top 3 physics genius. He accepted the military's investment and established a gamma-ray research laboratory, but ultimately, at the military's request, he used gamma rays to replace the energy in the super soldier experiment, and this unbelievable situation occurred. In the video, the invincible muscular monster dismantled the large instrument like Lego toys, then tore through the wall like paper, also breaking the camera, and the recording ended there. When did this happen? Just the night before last. Although the military immediately sealed off the news, we happened to have our people in that laboratory, and they managed to get this video back as quickly as possible. Hey, you don't have some crazy idea, do you? You want me to go contend with this monster? Are you overestimating me, or are you jealous that I have a cute, obedient daughter while you only have a son who gives you headaches? Bucky was only shocked by Green Hulk's appearance before, but then he suddenly thought, even if Green Hulk appeared, it had no connection to him. At most, they were both products of the super soldier serum. Why was Howard so eager to call him over and tell him this? Although this is a mess the military created, they should clean it up themselves. Howard didn't directly answer yes or no, but patiently said. But Dr. Banner seems to have lost his mind, yet also seems to retain some memory. Although I don't know what happened during this past day, when the military tracked him again, he turned into that green monster once more, continuously rushing towards the town near the base where he usually lives. This involves the safety of innocent lives. Since I know about it, even if it means a lawsuit with the military, I must do something. Bucky, I don't want you to defeat him, we just have to try and find a way to prevent innocent lives from being affected. Is there still time for us to get there? Dr. Banner seems to regain some sanity from time to time, especially after defeating some troops and venting his anger, so even though it's in New Mexico, if we take a supersonic plane, we should make it. Then let's go. However, are there any of those so-called overly destructive weapons you were unwilling to take out last time that I can use? Bucky didn't actually have such a high sense of awareness or justice. The innocent civilians in the New Mexico town had no connection to him whatsoever. There's a perpetrator for every wrong, and if there's a grievance, it should be taken up with the military. But wasn't it because Howard sought his help that the system reacted? System message. Triggered super mission. Don't poke the bear, especially not Hulk, requires angering Hulk and attracting his attention, triggering a battle. Rewards will be settled based on the battle situation. Although the system directly stated it, translating this mission into human words meant three things: don't seek death. But since it was Hulk, the first true superhero, or rather, transcendent being, Bucky had encountered since coming to this world, how could he just hide directly? He had to go and see first. At worst, he'd unleash a few skills from afar, and if that didn't work, he'd just run. However, even with the idea of poking the bear and running, the thrill was real, and the nervousness was equally real. So he wanted some sense of security, and besides, Howard was the one who sought him out. Last time, it could be said that Bucky, the Winter Soldier, didn't need those few Hydra elite soldiers, but this time, facing a true monster, shouldn't there be some black technology involved? My inventions, if I had a premonition they were too powerful and dangerous, I directly sealed them. Most are unfinished prototypes, and they are all weapons of mass destruction, and I've hidden them in secret vaults in various locations. There is one here in Brooklyn, but I doubt it will be of much use. Howard gave a wry smile. It wasn't that he was shirking, but it was truly the case. At this moment, seeing such a monster, he genuinely felt his previous ideas were too conservative, and those overly powerful inventions shouldn't have all been sealed, at least one should have been completed. What is it? At least let me see. What if it's useful? Honestly, looking at that guy, I really feel out of my depth. Then let's go, quickly. The two sped off to an underground vault in a detached villa. Bucky was stunned by what Howard took out. It looked like a single-person gliders, but it was made of metal, with 2 fuel bottles and 2 turbojets, a parachute-like harness, and a remote control device connected by wires. This is the EXO-02 Falcon, the second version of my Falcon personal flight device. It can be operated by a single person for flight, but it has only been test-flown with remote-controlled robots. No genre has ever tested it. Bucky listened to Howard's explanation, looking at the flying device before him, and his eyes immediately turned into dots. No way, am I the Great Eagle myself? Before Bucky traveled through, he had heard of the comedic duo Ce Bao and A Mao, a rehashed version of the Condor hero's story, with a severed arm and a giant condor, only missing a ante. But he never expected that after he himself traveled through and became Bucky, not only was he not given an ante, he wasn't even given a giant condor, he had to be self-sufficient. That's fine too. Anyway, the Kylin arm and the giant condor complement each other, they can form a CP, but one person can still manage. But the problem is, this isn't the finished military product XO07 from Captain America 2, it's O2. It hasn't been obtained by the military for some unknown reason yet. Instead, it's still in the hands of its original creator, Howard Stark, which Bucky hadn't even considered, and it's only an immature second-generation product. Fortunately, Howard said that this one can at least fly successfully and stably, but it hasn't undergone a genre immortal test flight. It's just right for Bucky to try it. Are you sure? In the villa's backyard, Howard saw Bucky unhesitatingly put on the Falcon wing, which had a wingspan of over 2 meters, and couldn't help but ask with some concern. Are you too confident in yourself, or too confident in him, this genius scientist? Howard really wanted to tell Bucky that sometimes he also invents strange things on a whim. Of course I'm not sure, but what's the essential difference in terms of danger level between this and going to find that monster's trouble? This is even safer. Bucky shrugged helplessly. This was about provoking the invincible Hulk. If he had any other ideas, would he need to try this thing that even Howard himself felt was unreliable? However, for Bucky, this wasn't particularly dangerous. Compared to being slapped by the Hulk, even if this thing exploded, it would only be equivalent to an RPG. His defense, which allows him to take bullets to the face, isn't particularly weak. And even if something goes wrong in the air, as long as he doesn't fly too high, he won't die from falling 20 or 30 meters. He still has some capital to be reckless. And he does have some confidence. He had Howard temporarily and simply modify the Falcon wing, connecting the remote control devices for his left and right hands into a single interface, and then he connected his network access POD's data cable for a direct connection. It's like typing on a computer just by thinking. This way, Bucky can control the Falcon wing directly, just like controlling his own prosthetic body. Anyway, there's no time to hesitate. Let's make a quick decision. You stand a little further away. Boom. As Bucky's mind moved, the Falcon wing ignited, and the turbojet engine sprayed out a rapid airflow. Bucky instantly felt a huge pulling force, as if a parachute had just opened, pulling him upward. Ah! From Howard's perspective, Bucky let out a scream and then flew into the sky like an inflatable rocket. Bucky was much more disheveled than Iron Man's first test flight in the future. He was instantly dazed. However, his powerful composure attribute quickly allowed him to calm down and react, adjusting instantly. He was seen only darting erratically in the sky for a few moments before quickly stabilizing and beginning to soar steadily. Yoo-hoo! Flight is a desire and dream embedded in human genes since the first time they saw birds. Feeling the rapid impact of the airflow, the whistling wind in his ears, and the constantly receding scenery in his vision, Bucky felt an indescribably exhilarating sensation from the bottom of his heart. Being a giant condor is much more enjoyable than being Yang Guo. However, he didn't get lost in the moment. He was still thinking about the Hulk, and he didn't want to attract too much attention. This was just for now. If he had traveled through back then, he would have been trending on social media. So he only flew briefly, trying out maneuvers like ascending, diving, and turning, then traced an arc in the sky and flew back. As he approached the villa's backyard, Bucky first made a dive, then a rapid ascent, but after only ascending about 20 meters, the engine stalled. Thud. With a loud thud, Bucky leapt down from a height of over 20 meters. His reaction attribute, which surpassed human limits, allowed him to adjust his body well and land steadily on both feet. However, Bucky's own weight of over 90 kilograms, steel Kirin arm, and the Falcon wing, though made of aerospace ultralight alloy, also weighed tens of kilograms. The impact of a free fall from over 20 meters, it was only because his body strength surpassed human limits and he had bulletproof skin that could dissipate some of the impact that his two legs weren't shattered. Even so, Bucky was shaken senseless, sitting on the ground, feeling like his legs weren't his own, and looking at his system attribute panel, his health points had dropped. "Are you all right?" Howard quickly ran over. He had warned Bucky before that this flying device was, after all, an experimental product. The first one could only fly straight up and down, and this second one could control direction in the air. However, the jet propulsion couldn't adjust the thrust speed, it was either maximum power or off, and ignition took time. His remote-controlled robot was damaged this way. But Bucky was stubborn this time, even more so than his troublesome son, making Howard somewhat suspect that he was intentionally trying to get himself injured to avoid that monster. "I'm fine, I can still hold on." Fortunately, Bucky wasn't some witcher who could die from a 2-meter fall next door, it was just a minor injury. After a healing injection, his health points were restored, which made Howard breathe a sigh of relief. "Ha, this thing is really powerful, but it's also really exhilarating." Bucky laughed several times, looking up at the sky. Aside from these minor flaws, everything else was truly exciting and satisfying. "Only super soldiers like you can endure this, but this shows me the possibility of success. I think you need to stop, snap out of it, we should go." Bucky saw that he had flown so exhilaratingly, yet he kept the main objective in mind and only played for a few moments before stopping. But now, Howard was about to enter research mode, and once an idea sparked, he would immediately become completely engrossed. Right, let's go quickly." Howard also knew his flaw as a super genius. He slapped his forehead and returned to the main topic. His villa had a helicopter pad, and a helicopter was ready. He took Bucky and the Falcon wing directly onto the helicopter, flew to his private airport, and then took his exclusive supersonic jet from the East US straight to the Southwest Mexico state, a small town named Vista Verde. It is surrounded by desert, with only one road leading to the city 20-odd kilometers away. Logically, at most, a gas station could be opened here, and perhaps a motorcycle bar at most. However, because there was a military base in the nearby desert, garrison often came here to spend money, gradually developing it into a very small town. And on this day, the town's peace was suddenly shattered by the sound of artillery. It wasn't the occasional muffled explosions heard when the military base conducted exercises, but clear and deafening sounds. This is the real monster. 3 to 4 kilometers outside the town. In a helicopter hovering over 100 meters in the air, Bucky, who had just seen the wreckage of tanks, armored vehicles, and helicopters 10 kilometers away, now watched the green monster rampage through the armored forces below. The sky cleared, the rain stopped, and feeling quite capable after his crossing, he immediately put away his slight arrogance. Compared to this monster, which was playing Musou-style mowing down enemies with impunity amidst a hail of heavy machine gun fire, grenade launchers, rockets, and artillery shells. What difference was there between his enhanced Winter Soldier and an ordinary person? But he still had to go. That green monster, the Invincible Hulk, was about to break through the army's blockade and rush into the town, which was already visible in the distance. Howard, have you made contact with the military? Not yet. General Ross won't communicate with me at all. He thinks I'm here to mock him or cause him trouble. Keep trying. I'll try to lure that monster away and let the military quickly evacuate the townspeople. I will. If it really doesn't work, hold on a bit longer. S.H.I.E.L.D. has already dispatched agents as an emergency measure. I'll do what I can. Pull up a bit higher. Bucky glanced at the rampaging Green Hulk on the ground again, and after the helicopter ascended to over 200 meters, he took the Falcon wing outside the helicopter and then leapt directly from the air. He swiftly put on the Falcon wing in midair, and when he was only about 20 meters above the ground, he finally adjusted his direction and posture, ignited the thrusters, and ascended. The armored forces on the ground were already on the verge of collapse. They had sacrificed too much, essentially using lives to fill the gaps, to let that invincible green monster vent his rage. Only then could they gain a temporary respite after he annihilated their forces. Yet, under the command of those cake-eaters, officers who only talked, they had to pursue the person who would turn into a monster again, enraging him again, and filling the gaps with lives again. Roar! Finally, when the monster charged to an M1A1 main battle tank, grabbed its cannon barrel with his massive hands, and with a furious roar, actually lifted the tank and then slammed it down, flattening an armored vehicle. The morale of the remaining soldiers collapsed. However, just as the green monster charged again, intending to smash any obstacles in front of him, whether vehicles or people, to smithereens. Tat tat tat. Suddenly, there was the sound of a miniature submachine gun firing, and then the back of the green monster's head began to smoke, a large number of bullets embedding in his hair, causing him to abruptly duck his head, his charging steps faltering, almost causing him to fall. Whoosh! The soldiers then noticed a large bird, no, a strange falcon wing carrying a person, sweeping over their heads. Was this some secret military weapon? A flying man? Clatter! The green monster shook his head, and a pile of flattened metal lumps flew out of his hair. Roar! Then he roared towards the sky, glaring at the little flying insect that had arced through the air and was coming to bother him again. He squatted hard, his muscles tensing and bulging, and the concrete road beneath his feet cracked and caved in. With an almost explosive sound, the green giant suddenly leapt, launching himself like a cannonball towards the diving little flying insect. Whoosh! However, while the Hulk was fast, it was only due to his strength, and his wind-up for a jump was too obvious. Bucky, controlling the Falcon wing, reacted extremely quickly. Although the Falcon wing was also fast, it couldn't be controlled very nimbly, but Bucky fired a burst of bullets at the Green Hulk. With smart weapons firing tracking bullets, he didn't need to bother aiming, he just had to keep the Green Hulk in the crosshairs and hold down the trigger. A burst of bullets directly hit the Green Hulk's face. Although it couldn't stop his charge, never mind bullets, even throwing a rockery wouldn't work, it could make him roar in anger and cover his face with his hands. Bucky also narrowly dodged the Green Hulk's impact at the last moment. This is so exciting. Not only did he have to dodge, but he also had to continue enraging the Green Hulk to draw aggro, constantly testing the boundaries of courting death. Bucky secretly cursed himself for being too reckless, yet felt an incredible thrill. Thud! Bucky flew away again, looked back, and saw that the Green Hulk, obstructed in midair, had a failed landing, creating a large crater on the ground, and then rolled away like a bowling ball. Roar! The Hulk, covered in dust and dirt, naturally roared in fury, charging exasperatedly towards Bucky. Tat tat tat. Bucky didn't need to charge back, he had already drawn enough aggro, turned to lock onto the Green Hulk and shoot, kiting him away. The Hulk chased the high-speed flying insect with huge leaps, determined to smash him to death. One large, one small, one on the ground, one in the air, the two quickly disappeared from sight, and Howard in the helicopter also followed them. Only the surviving soldiers, who had escaped the ordeal, remained in the smoke, looking at each other in disarray, as if just waking from a nightmare, somewhat incredulous that they had all survived. Drawing aggro was achieved, but what now? Although Bucky felt incredibly thrilling when he went to poke the bear, he found that he couldn't shake off the Hulk when he wanted to escape. The Falcon wing didn't fly slowly, at least nearly 200 kilometers per hour, but the Hulk, leaping with all his might like a cannonball, was no slower than the Falcon wing. And the Hulk's strength was endless. As long as he remained angry, he could stay angry for an entire day in a state of extreme fury. However, the Falcon Wing's fuel was limited, and very limited at that. According to Howard, due to weight considerations, as it had to be something a person could carry, the fuel was very limited, probably only supporting about 20 minutes of flight. And including the previous test flights, Bucky had already flown for 7 or 8 minutes. Bucky felt like he was in a difficult situation. He could use the smart submachine gun to target the Green Hulk's big feet and shoot, but with the Green Hulk's defense, which even cannonballs couldn't penetrate, if it weren't for the sudden attack that caught him off guard, even if Bucky's weapon had higher damage, it wouldn't slow down the Green Hulk's speed now. However, there weren't no other ways to stop the Green Hulk. System, I'm counting on you this time. Bucky locked onto the Green Hulk and fired an electromagnetic short circuit. He wasn't a weapon-focused type. His hacking skills were his most powerful weapon. It really didn't work, seeing an arc of electricity flash across the Green Hulk's body, but it had even less effect than a burst of bullets. He was completely oblivious, and Bucky exclaimed, "My little roadside grass." Thinking about it, this was a behemoth filled with gamma energy. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say an entire nuclear power plant was miniaturized inside his body. A mere amount of electricity that couldn't even kill an ordinary person was truly less effective than tickling the Green Hulk with bullets. But Bucky didn't just have this one skill. Again. Hulk, who was chasing Bucky in the sky, determined to swat that little flying bug to death, leapt into the air, but suddenly clutched his stomach, curled into a ball, and slammed heavily onto the ground. Then, Hulk, who had only known angry roars since his birth, suddenly gagged uncontrollably, clutching his stomach. It really works. The system is awesome. Bucky's first electromagnetic short circuit was ineffective, followed by a contagious infection. This time, Hulk was not indifferent. Instead, he experienced the same effect as an ordinary person. His body was racked with pain, making it difficult to resist. It makes sense. Green Hulk is also a person. Yes, he is a person, just a Hulk transformed by the super soldier serum and gamma energy, but ultimately, he retains human characteristics, his most basic template as human. Just as Hulk's consciousness and Dr. Bruce Banner's consciousness later merged, he, maintaining Hulk's physique and Dr. Banner's mind, still needed to breathe and eat. This wasn't just Dr. Banner subconsciously maintaining his living habits, it was because he truly had normally functioning respiratory and digestive systems. He felt pain when Thanos beat him up, and he had a normal nervous system. And although Hulk has high energy resistance, he isn't directly immune to Bucky's attacks. He first takes Bucky's attacks and then feels nothing. Therefore, Bucky's contagious infection successfully invaded Hulk's body, and then successfully made his nervous system receive pain signals, causing his body to produce a painful reaction. Although Hulk was still unharmed, Bucky successfully hindered his movements, allowing him to shake off Hulk and escape. Yes, even though Hulk was so uncomfortable he was almost rolling on the ground, he actually hadn't sustained any substantial damage. Once the effect of contagious infection wore off, he would be perfectly fine. And Bucky didn't have any means to directly make Hulk unconscious. Unless the target is at least unconscious, it is not considered a defeat by the system. And without defeating him, Bucky had already achieved his goal of enraging Hulk and engaging him in battle. It's best to quit while he's ahead. Even though Bucky had put Hulk through a lot, one contagious infection wasn't enough, so he followed up with a sonic shock, making Hulk clutch his ears and yell, directly knocking him down. But Bucky felt no pride in his heart. Instead, he was filled with a sense of powerlessness. It was like a child poking a big muscular guy's butt and then running away while he wasn't paying attention. What was there to be proud of? If the big muscular guy caught him, wouldn't he just be kicked flying? The gap between the two sides was already immeasurably vast. As he gradually moved away, hearing only roars but not seeing Hulk pursue him again, Bucky couldn't help but sigh. But at least he had provoked Hulk, albeit with a scare, and that's not something everyone can do. Bucky consoled himself, found a flat piece of ground, landed with another ground-smashing maneuver, grimaced, and injected another healing shot. It didn't do much to Hulk, but it severely damaged his flight wings, which was something else entirely. "Hey, Howard, what's the situation in the town?" As soon as Hulk left, Howard's helicopter quickly caught up, directly lowering a rope ladder. Bucky climbed up and then asked, "You really angered that green monster? He seems even more enraged and is now rushing towards the town again." Howard's tone was slightly anxious. He wasn't blaming Bucky. Instead, because he could only watch the entire time, his brilliant mind was useless against such an incommunicable monster, causing an uncontrollable sense of powerlessness to rise in his heart. And the situation was indeed urgent. And I just contacted the military to help them evacuate the people from the town. Bucky, we need more time. This time, Hulk not only didn't vent his anger, but he also suffered a setback. Bucky bought time, but what he got in return was an even more enraged Hulk. Then let's go check it out again. Bucky sighed, then felt a headache, knowing this wasn't over, but not knowing how to end it. He could only take it one step at a time and go see the situation first. While on the way, Bucky finally took a breath and communicated with the system in his mind. System information. Special mission, don't poke the bear, especially not Hulk, has met the settlement criteria. System, settle the mission. Bucky felt that with the 2 kiting maneuvers he just performed, the mission rating wouldn't be high. But he still chose to settle the mission. Even if the rating wasn't high, it was a special mission, and completing it would yield advanced rewards. And now, he was about to face an even more enraged Hulk, who held a particular grudge against him, so he really needed advanced rewards. System information. Don't poke the bear, especially not Hulk, completed. Mission rating. Low completion. Received 2,000 experience points, random item box blue rare 2. Bucky felt a little disappointed, but it was also understandable. 2 blue rare boxes were actually quite good, and the experience points were generous, enough to level up immediately. System information. Experience points have reached the upgrade standard, now upgraded. Character level 5. Experience points 655,000. Available attribute points +1. Available perk points +1. System, add intelligence to attributes, and add 2 points to contagious infection, 3 points to increased damage quick hack, 2 points to subliminal message, 2 points to signal support for perks. System information. Attributes and perk points added. Character, James Buchanan Barnes. Level 5. Body 8, Athletics 7, Annihilation 7, Brawling 8. Reflexes 8, Handgun 7, Assault 7, Blades 7. Technique 4, Engineering 2, Crafting 4. Intelligence 10, Hacking Protocol 3, Quick Hack 3. Cool 11, Stealth 9, Cold Blood 3. Health, 220 220ths. Stamina, 160 160ths. New Quick Hack perk talents, Contagious Infection 3 feet etc. Semicolon. Contagious Infection 3. Your aggressive Quick Hack skills now spread to 3 additional hostile targets within 20 meters. Increased Damage Quick Hack 3. Your Quick Hack damage is increased by 30%. Subliminal Message 2. Quick Hack can now be used for ambushes, increasing damage to enemies who haven't detected you by 100%. Signal Support 2. Quick Hack duration plus 50%. Bucky had previously saved up quite a few free perk points, originally intending to add them to crafting-related perks, and he wasn't in a hurry to add them because they were already sufficient for ordinary people. But now he couldn't afford to care about that much. Facing Hulk, every bit of improvement counted. After finishing the upgrade and allocating points, Bucky didn't bother with any sense of ritual and directly opened the boxes. System information. Opened random item box blue rare 2, obtained item, Lynx Claw, obtained item, 05. Lynx Claw, leg cyberware, special joints and feet, providing ample cushioning, allowing for silent movement, stealth effect plus 15%. 05 blue rare immortal level 5, kinetic sniper rifle, damage 395 to 485, 26 attacks per second, can use special high explosive ammunition, weight 12 kilograms. A modified version of high-tech military industries STP-32 Ice Storm Sniper Rifle, capable of shooting down even hovercars. Good heavens! Bucky stared with wide eyes at the Super Sniper Rifle, which was even larger than his Ice Storm, wondering what kind of divine weapon this was. There are 2 types of sniper rifles. One type prioritizes precision, capable of hitting a target in the left eye from 500 miles away, not the right. The other type doesn't require extreme precision because the fired bullet explodes with the force of a howitzer, even a slight graze can obliterate a person. This type of sniper rifle can also be called a sniper grenade launcher. Essentially, it's a highly precise grenade launcher. Before Bucky's transmigration, he watched a military channel program introducing the domestic LG-5 sniper grenade launcher, which fires 40mm grenades. There was a video of it destroying a car with one shot from 200 meters away. At the time, Bucky exclaimed, "Good heavens." Now, looking at the meter-long super sniper rifle in his hand, he again let out an exclamation of, "Good heavens." He never expected to open a box and get an immortal weapon. Immortal weapons in the game aren't about being indestructible. They're upgraded versions of regular weapons, like legends among legends, possessing special effects that ordinary weapons lack. Moreover, each immortal weapon in the game is unique and requires special methods to obtain. The 05 that Bucky unboxed was a reward for a black market boxing mission. However, by the time he got it, he already had a better Watchman, so it was usually just for collection. But he still remembered that 05 should have been purple epic grade, while his was blue rare. However, his system itself had some differences from the game. In any case, as long as it worked well, that was enough. Compared to his previous Ice Storm, which had 83 attacks per second and 60 to 80 damage, this advanced 05 only had 26 attacks per second, meaning after firing the first shot, he had to wait almost 4 seconds for the second shot. It was infuriatingly slow. But this fire rate came at the cost of a staggering 395 to 485 damage that left Bucky dumbfounded. And it exploded. These weren't bullets at all, they were artillery shells. The mini-missiles on Bucky's right arm had a larger explosion radius, but their damage was slightly inferior to this. This made him not even care much about the other item he unboxed, the rare cybernetic Lynx Claw. With this gun, why bother with stealth? Could any living person even discover him? He just wanted to ask, is there anyone else? Alright, there's still Hulk. Even if this gun's damage was comparable to an artillery shell, artillery shells couldn't break through Hulk's defense. If this gun were upgraded to max level and orange legendary quality, plus Bucky's attributes, specialties, and talent bonuses, he would dare to say, perhaps it could hurt Hulk. So Bucky was only momentarily happy due to his love for weapons, and he quickly regained his composure. System, implant the foot cybernetic, Lynx Claw. System message. Cybernetic implanting. Implanting complete. Bucky felt a strange sensation in both of his large feet. After the implant was complete, he felt his soles become more flexible and acquire a thin, soft padding, like the paw pads of cats and dogs. He stomped hard, but only felt a slight tremor. Although he couldn't discern any silencing effect inside the helicopter, the shock absorption effect was indeed good. This was an unexpected gain. He wouldn't be shaken silly when the flight wings landed later. And with this silent movement and stealth effect, Bucky thought of Hulk, who was rushing back into the town. Perhaps, these Lynx Claws were even more useful. Vestaveld Town. The army from the secret base had deployed another M1A1 main battle tank, 3 armored vehicles, and 2 helicopters to set up the final defense line on the outskirts of the town. At this moment, Hulk returned with amplified fury. It was predictable that this small deployment would still be like snarling ants to the invincible Hulk. However, just as Hulk was rampaging, smashing armored vehicles, overturning tanks, and had just rushed into the town. Thump thump thump. Hulk's charging steps were once again disrupted as a barrage of bullets hit the back of his head, causing smoke to rise. Again, roar. Hulk looked up at the sky and saw that annoying little flying insect again. He was absolutely furious. It was a good thing he only had rage and no concept of composure, otherwise he would have snapped long ago. With a roar, he casually picked up a car and flung it violently towards Bucky in the sky. Bucky, who had just arrived and was about to continue, dodged the car with a sideways spin, but suddenly, Bucky felt a sudden loss of gravity, then the world spun, and he lost control. Careful, flight wings malfunctioning. Howard's startled cry sounded in his cybernetic ear, connected to the intercom frequency. Bucky inwardly cursed Howard's unreliable inventions. But this was no time to complain. Luckily, the malfunction occurred during a low-altitude pass, preventing Bucky from plummeting from 100 meters up. However, the time was even shorter, and he could only try to curl up his body. Boom! In an instant, Bucky felt a sharp pain throughout his body, and his vision went black. He hadn't fainted, but Bucky had directly burst through a wall and crashed into a civilian residence. Thank goodness most of the houses in the United States were made of wood. Boom! However, because he had crashed through a wall and then, fortunately, into a wardrobe, gaining sufficient cushioning, Bucky didn't even have time to be grateful before another loud bang echoed. This time, it was an explosion, the malfunctioning flight wings encountered an impact and directly blew up. My magnificent wings suddenly had a mind of their own, they smoked, they spasmed, and finally, they exploded. PFF'd. Suffering a sudden heavy blow to his back, even with Bucky's physique and defensive capabilities, he violently spat out a mouthful of blood. This time, his vision truly went black, and he nearly passed out. He quickly administered 2 healing needles, 1 rapid healing shot that instantly restored plus 15% health, and 1 continuous healing shot that restored plus 5% and 2% health per second. As the pain subsided, Bucky punched through the wall with his left arm, burst out, and then immediately fell to the ground, rolling around until he finally extinguished the flames on his body. That Green Hulk. Bucky also felt a surge of anger rush to his head. While secretly cursing Howard's unreliability, he vented all his rage towards Hulk. Instantly, red and blue neon blocks flashed on his hand as he summoned the large gun, 05, aiming at the red box around Hulk, who he had just locked onto with target lock. Boom. Hulk, having used a card to take out the little flying insect, had slightly vented his anger. Just as he took a big leap to leave, he felt a tremendous force in midair and was sent flying diagonally. The intense explosion and massive impact force caused his enormous body, like a wrecking ball, to directly collapse a civilian residence. Bucky, is that you? Are you all right? I'm fine, not dead. Have all the town residents been evacuated? Not yet, there are still the last few patients in the town hospital. Howard suddenly thought of something and quickly told Bucky. Right, the place Dr. Banner rushed to is the town hospital. His target may have always been there. He might be influenced by his subconscious, there might be someone he wants to see in the hospital. Who? I'm going. Bucky was also startled, suddenly realizing that the Green Hulk's girlfriend, General Ross's daughter Betty Ross, was also a scientist who had fully participated in the Hulk experiment and was accidentally injured by him when Hulk was born. Was this Green Hulk actually going to find his girlfriend? Don't tell me, am I being fed dog food by the Green Hulk? Bucky never expected the Green Hulk's counterattack to be so silent, swift, and sharp, with 0 damage but tons of humiliation. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe for more videos.